Take charge of your purchases with a cashback rewards credit card from Pathways Financial Credit Union. Make purchases anywhere, anytime, and get 1.5% cash back for each dollar you spend. That's right, 1.5% cash back for each dollar you spend. Visit pathwayscu.com. That's pathwayscu.com to find out more about the cashback rewards credit card from Pathways. Pathways Financial Credit Union, your true financial partner. Member NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
This podcast is brought to you by Udemy, a leading destination for learning and teaching online. Need to learn professional skills for your career? Join millions of people learning the latest skills in business and tech on Udemy. Udemy has helped learners around the world launch new careers, advance in their current field, and earn money on the side. Visit udemy.com and find the course for you.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Speedball Mike Bailey. You're listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. Yosh.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace Up podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and the JML. On today's show, we'll preview the historic crossover pay-per-view and cover all this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get the podcast over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/Social Suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWworld.com, with features like dark mode, improved translation and layouts, custom and share plus, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Jay, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on and joining me and the young boy.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. We called you in to be our stardom expert for the week, man.
Well, that's not completely
Don't call me
true.
expert.
I was going to say, it's not entirely true. The truth is, we wanted you on last week's show ahead of Chris Hamsa. That's right. We were calling in the big guns, and then JML wasn't able to make it, and then we called in Chris as the backup. So you're in the pecking order. Like, he's like jobber. You're like upper main eventer, basically.
Okay. I didn't know that. Because Chris does phenomenal work. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that I'd be over him. It's crazy. But
well, I'm here to bury him because he's not on the call, and I know that he's going to be listening, so it's just funny.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah, Chris is the man. Shout out.
Oh yeah, we love having Chris, and we're so glad you're here too.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so anytime we have new guests on the show, kind of like to get their background, and normally just ask about New Japan, but since we are going to be covering this historic crossover pay-per-view, we'll ask you about Stardom also. So first question, Jay, when did you start watching New Japan, and when did you start watching Stardom?
So it goes back all the way back. I was a WCW fan, so I watched. The first time I ever saw a glimpse of New Japan Pro Wrestling was I saw it was a Saturday morning WCW show. I forgot which one it was, and they were showing highlights of Muta and Sting versus the Steiner Brothers. That's the first time I ever saw it. But as time went on, I never was able to watch it full, in real time or regularly. Probably the time I started watching New Japan regularly is when I got access to the internet and started watching around 2005, 2006, I would say. Following the Stu Max site, Pure Wrestling Fan, just following through that and start watching New Japan regularly through that time. I would wait, a couple of months because of like DVDs started to pop up and stuff like that. And that was right when, file sharing was starting to get real big. So that's how I got into watching New Japan Pro Wrestling. So for me, that whole era of Tenzan, Kojima, and Tanahashi coming up, and Nakamura being basically a young guy, and Goto. I remember Goto being a junior and going to Mexico and coming back and gaining 30 pounds. For me, that was the New Japan I basically came up with watching. I fell out a little bit right around 2010, 2011, but got back in right when Bushiroad purchased the company. So, and ever since then, I've been watching New Japan regularly. So, and you said with Stardom, I started watching Stardom regularly in 2015. So the company that was started in 2011. So I was 4 years behind, but for me watching Stardom, that was 2015. That's when, ironically, that was when the Yoshiko at Yasukawa incident happened. So what a way to come in the ground floor of that. But started watching that, and I've been watching Stardom ever since. It's been up and down with my fandom in terms of Stardom. There's times I've hated the company. Sometimes I love the company. Love the company. Now I truly do love the product now. But yeah, and it was really weird what happened in 2019, and for them to get bought by Bushiroad and things that happened behind the scenes, like almost getting bought by WWE. To have this show now, it's a weird place coming together, for Stardom. It's really weird seeing that company go from what I saw in 2015, which was a good promotion and just undercover, to now it's, some would say, the number two. I won't say it's number two promotion in Japan, just because of what the circumstances are with the pandemic, but just to see them doing a joint show with New Japan, it just kind of blows my mind, and I'm really happy that it's happening.
Yeah, coming in into the product in 2015, like you mentioned with that shoot incident, my understanding is that that's almost like a benchmark for a shift in how the entire culture and like work of the company was anyway. So it's almost like a fortunate time for you to have come in, essentially, is my understanding.
Yeah. And then when I got into it, it was entirely shift. Like you said, it was a big shift, and then it really introduced, because when you got rid of Yoshiko and Aki Yasukawa was a popular act in Stardom, and they had to rely on Freedom, the three daughters of Stardom, Io Shirai, Mayu Iwatani, and Kari Hojo. People know from her WWE fame, Takari Sane. And ironically, on this show, we're about to preview, two of them are going to face off in the main event. So to get on the ground floor of that and watch them progress into what they are now, just kind of blows me away. But I'm really fortunate that I got to see them in real time, watch them progress and become the big stars that they are. And I never thought this would happen, them wrestling for the IWGP Championship. But yeah, it's a totally different shift from what Stardom was. And they've gone through some major things, major shifts. Either it was that or sort of semi-exodus of not just Io Shirai and Kari to WWE, but also a lot of the foreigners who toured through the company, basically using them as a stepping stone to get to WWE. You have that era, and then you have this weird period where Jungle Kiona and Momo Watanabe and Kagetsu and Hana Kimura as basically your top people, and then Bushiroad buys them, and then you have the Hana Kimura tragedy, Horacio Shiki retires, and then it's another shift, and they've just gone through so much, but it seems like every step of the way where they take a step back, they always prosper forward. So just kind of a testament to Horacio Ogawa and how he's kind of weathered through the storm all these years. It's pretty remarkable, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely agree, especially when you look at what happened in the pandemic and just how Stardom was like one of the only promotions that was continuing to grow during the pandemic. You know, a lot of companies, they were losing business, and Stardom, the live attendance was going up, subscriptions on Stardom World was going up, the popularity just continued to rise despite the pandemic.
Yeah, and they were still aggressive. You know, Rossi and Bushiroad fight, they were really aggressive in terms of getting new talent into the promotion, whereas like their rivals TJPW were letting people go out of their contracts. They were acquiring people. They were acquiring people from TJPW and from Actress Girls. You know, just acquiring more talent and trying to build, and that's what they've done. They kind of followed the game plan, even with the pandemic and everything that's going on. They followed the game plan. I remember Kadani saying they had a 5-year plan, and I think they've kind of hit most of their objectives during the 5-year plan.
Well, I think that they were somewhat in a unique position when the pandemic started, being sort of like the market leader when it came to Joshi, but also not having fully realized their growth potential, you know? And like working in finance, it just reminds me of like a lot of stocks and, you know, different equities that, you know, decreased because of the situation. A lot of people got rich off of that. And it almost feels like they were in the right place, right time to go into an expansion mode and kind of capitalize off of what was going on. And like you mentioned, now they're kind of, whether it's for the long term or not, they're, you know, essentially the number 2 company in you know, Japan right now, which is kind of wild. So it's pretty cool to see. It's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you said, it's a unique situation for them, and with Stardom, I think for them, they're in a unique situation where, because of the leader, you won't see a big, fall off in terms of what, in terms of full crowds, in terms of full crowds coming back. I don't think there will be a big fall off of what they're projected to do. I mean, I know some people will say, well, once crowds fully come back, Dragon Gate's going to surpass them, or Noah or All Japan. But I don't think so. Right before the pandemic, they had 2 Korakuen Hall shows that were 2 of their biggest drawing Korakuens, in their history. So, I know some people have attributed. I know Jade Church, who is the Dragon Gate lead play-by-play guy. Excuse me. He said that on a show. He said that so certain things with Stardom, it's more of a Bushiroad type fan base. The Bushiroad fans of their other properties, whether it's cards or the anime, they come in and starting to check out Stardom. But I think they're here to stay, and no matter how you get these fans, they're going to stay. And Stardom's done a good job of keeping it growing, and you just got to present yourself as a major league product, and that's what they're doing. With all the way down to production in terms of the roster, they really present themselves, and they're going to keep doing it. And I think the aggressive nature, it's going to work.
Yeah, So, who are your favorite NJPW wrestlers and Stardom wrestler?
My favorite New Japan wrestler of all time, or just currently?
Could be both.
Of all time is Jushin Thunder Liger. JML, that acronym is because I was a message board guy, and I used to be on the DVD-VR Death Valley Driver Review Board forums and the PWO forums, and my username was Jushin Muto Liger. So that's and someone just offhandedly called me JML, so it kind of stuck. But Liger, he's my favorite New Japan wrestler of all time. He might be my favorite wrestler of all time. And with Stardom, my favorite Stardom wrestler all time is Jungle Kiona. And I was happy I got to see her live when she came to New Jersey, of all places, a couple months ago. So I was happy to see her live. And I missed out on Liger, but I got to see Jungle.
Nice. And then your favorite match from New Japan Stardom could be all time or recent.
My favorite New Japan match of all time. I got to watch, like I was mentioned before, I got to follow follow New Japan regularly since 2006. But I did go back and watch some of the earlier matches, and just my favorite match, just because of the spectacle of it, is Muta versus Liger from '96, where Liger becomes Keishin Liger and tries to stab Muta. So I've always been drawn to the different presentations of what New Japan has done over the years, and to me, it's one of the best spectacles they've ever done. And that was at Kobe World Hall. Just what they've done with Liger and Muta. That was my favorite New Japan match of all time. It's not the best match I've ever seen from New Japan, but it's one of my favorites. And for Stardom, my favorite match in Stardom ever is Jungle Kiona versus Momo Watanabe from 2019, March of 2019. It makes it sweeter because they've had a long rivalry with Jungle. Momo was her first match ever in the company, and she beat her. And you fast forwarded to 2018 to Io Shirai's farewell show in June. They main evented that show. It wasn't Io Shirai. It was Jungle Kiona and Momo Watanabe, and that match was awesome itself in 2018 because from the get-go, the bell rings and they just run and punch each other and knock each other on the ass. So, and it goes from there and escalates from there. But you build off that match, and she didn't. It was for the Wonder of Stardom title, and Jungle didn't win, but she gets the rematch in March of 2019. And to me, that for the longest time, I thought that was the second greatest match in Stardom's history, the Jungle Momo match in 2019, where I've seen people describe the match as King's Road, and it really is. It's really a King's Road style of match. How the way they built the match up throughout the entire match. Excuse me, and with Jungle, she lost again, and she lost in our hometown, which sucks, but it's kind of a recurring thing with Jungle. She's kind of been labeled as the Hiroki Goto or Tomoyoshi of Stardom, or even of all of Joshi. But to me, that's my favorite Stardom match of all time. That match. So it involves two of my favorite wrestlers. So there you go.
Nice, man. Well, before we get into historic crossover, real quick, why don't you tell our listeners what you do with the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame ballot?
Okay, so what I do is I am one half of the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame tracker. We do a public ballot tracker for the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. Basically collect votes, public ballot votes that people post on Twitter or on certain message boards or on Facebook. We collect those ballots, we tally them up, and we try to. It's really more of an exercise to project who's going to make it to the Hall of Fame. we kind of modeled ourselves as the baseball tracker Hall of Fame because with the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, it's not like the WWE Hall of Fame where only one person picks it, and that's Vince. You know, it's a group of voters that Dave selects, and the voter fan base has grown over the years. It's up to 400 people that's going to vote now. It's mostly historians and reporters, but it's also former wrestlers, current wrestlers, and promoters, and people that are behind that have been in the business. They vote for the Hall of Fame, and it's been highly contested. To me, it's that Hall of Fame it's that Hall of Fame and the baseball Hall of Fame are the most highly contested Hall of Fames to me, throughout combat sports. And I wouldn't say baseball's combat sport, but throughout sports or entertainment. The only one that I could think of that comes close to it is probably the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where people get upset with if people don't make the Hall of Fame. But with that, it's more of an exercise for us to project who's going to go into the Hall of Fame. It's not like a witch hunt of, oh, your ballot stinks or anything like that. It's just more of an exercise to see take the temperature of who's going in the ballot. And it's pretty cool because over the last couple of years we've been doing it. It's been a kind of a good, let's see, groundswell of people that have come to the account and, you know, tag us, and you even got Ian Riccoboni to give us his ballot. So,
Nice.
and that was pretty cool last year. Hopefully he does it this year. We'll probably email him or something like that, you know, reminding him, because the ballot's due tomorrow. So it's just a fun way, you know. It's nerdy, and people think it might be stupid because of the Observer Hall of Fame. I don't care. It's really fun, and a lot of the credit goes to Detlef. He's my partner. It kind of grew. We were talking through Discord, through the Voice of Wrestling Discord, because they have a Hall of Fame section, and for a good while, for a couple of years, like, the Hall of Fame wasn't talked about as much as it used to be. I know, like, in the message board days, right before Twitter got really popular, people would just have these long debates on who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame and this and that, and the discussion kind of tailed off, and no one would reveal their ballots and stuff. So we would start looking for public ballots ourselves, and that's how we kind of came up with the tracker. And it's been like this for a couple of years now. So, you know, right before I got on the call, I was entering Chad Campbell's ballot. He does the show for PWO where the big boys play, for Place to Be Nation. So it's kind of funny. All day I've been just going through ballots and stuff. It's interesting to see because it's tied into New Japan. Kota Ibushi, he's getting a lot of votes. Him and Naito, but Kota Ibushi's getting a lot of votes. If I pull up the latest for the tracker, it looks like we've gotten 38 ballots so far, and Kota Ibushi's sitting at 70%. Naito's sitting at 64%.
So with you guys doing your tracking, I mean, is there a large variability between what you guys are seeing in your tracking versus the actual outcome, or is it usually a pretty strong indication of what may actually happen?
Last year was a pretty strong indicator because the people that got in, it was Okada, the Brazos, trying to think who else. Let me just pull up who else got in, because I'm trying to think of it. It was Jim Crockett Jr. and oh gosh, Valley's going to kill me because he advocated for this guy.
Or even while you're looking that up, I mean, one of the things I was wondering, do you guys typically see a situation like what you're just describing, where like on your tracker, Ibushi seems like he's doing really well, but then when the actual Hall of Fame results come out, it's like he didn't make it because maybe you guys are pulling from a certain sample size, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and it was Don Owen. That's what I was thinking. Don Owen and Jim Valley. He's going to kill me for that, but because he advocated for Don Owen so long. But yeah, when looking at it, I'm just looking at the ballot last year now. Okada was coming in at 87% on the public ballot. He got 92%. The Brazos came in at 66%, and they actually got 86%. With Sergeant Slaughter, he came in at 56% for the public ballot, and the actual percentage he got was 58%. So we were really close. I think Modern US is the one that's really close indicator, because that's the people that are most successful to us. I mean, that's the thing. Dave gives ballots to throughout the world, even though I would indicate that a lot of people are either North American based or European based. That's sort of the most of ballots we've gotten so far. But with the tracker, I think Modern US, we kind of get it right. But the year before, it was with Kenny Omega. That was the one where I remember we got around 23% of the public ballot vote, and then he got in at 60%. And what we found out, that was a lot of wrestlers, like like current wrestlers that voted for him, or retired wrestlers that voted for him. So with that's the only thing to me. As more and more ballots we collect, I think that's the one thing that's going to offset it. Is I think we're going to be really good predicting who would come out, because I remember last year we picked basically Okada, Brazos, Slaughter, and Jim Crockett Jr. To be the ones that would get close. I didn't think we had Don Owen come in at 45%, and he came in at 61%. So that was the one thing, one person that we kind of got off. And I thought with Slaughter it could be a variability thing for him, but with this year, it really depends on how many current wrestlers gets a ballot this year. That's the one thing that could be the big variable in terms of who gets in or not. If the wrestlers show up in mass and vote for a certain person, because I think if I know one of the questions that popped up is who should be in the ballot, just the Japan region. I personally think if Kenta, and Kenta's never been on the ballot, I think if Kenta showed up on the ballot, I think he would get a groundswell of a lot of current wrestlers that would vote for him, just because he was so innovative and people basically stole his stuff, stole his moves. So with him, I think he would get a groundswell. And then also Kenta was one of the greatest in-ring wrestlers during his time. So I think that would be the case for him. But yeah, the wrestler component, that's the thing that I don't think a lot of wrestlers are going to flock to us to reveal their ballots publicly.
Right.
So I think that would be the case if we got anything wrong. But I think the more ballots we get, I mean, obviously the more ballots we get, the better projections we get. But I think last year we kind of got really close, and kind of proud of that.
Wow, that's really interesting. I think it's interesting what you said about Kenta, where there's a lot of folks sort of indicating that they think Marufuji is going to have a really tough time getting in. I'm like, they're like 1A, 1B. Like, this is so weird to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as you guys grow and get more tracking, like you mentioned, it's going to become a, year over year, even more, reliable kind of indication of how things are turning out. So it's really cool, really interesting stuff.
Yeah. Hopefully, if Twitter doesn't die in the next 2 weeks or even the 2 months, we'll get more support. If that happens, we'll just pivot. We'll find another way to collect the ballots. But the tracker's not going to die. That's if people are wondering about the track's not going to die. So
someone's going to have to restart the DVD VR.
It's still around.
It's still
DVR is
kind of
still
around. Kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let's shift focus now towards the historic crossover pay-per-view. And we did have some questions here from MJSPR I thought would be good to kind of kick us off, just talking about Stardom kind of mixing with New Japan. So he asked, he says, for JML, he says, Young Boy likes to say Gato books tragedies. Can you describe Rossi's booking style and the type of stories he likes to tell?
That's a good question. With Rossi, he likes to book coming-of-age stories. With him, there's always, every year, and I've noticed this, even dating back to the Arceon days when he booked Arceon, he likes to make a new star every year. This year, it's Mirai. That's it. That's the star he's tried to make this year. The year before, it was, I mean, what, 2020? I guess it would be Utami, even though Utami was known. I guess Utami to the rest of the world, that was the star, and treated her like that and gave her the mega push. But even then, looking back on it in Cinderella tournament, usually Cinderella tournament is the big indicator of who he's going to make the new star of the year. Last year's Cinderella tournament was Saya Kamatani, and she's the Wonder of Stardom champion now. So for him, in the year before 2019, or no, because I'm thinking last year's 20. It's been a mess. Last year's 2020, 2021. The year before it's 2020. In 2020, he made Julia the big star, and it's if you date back even more, it's Momo Watanabe 1 year. Kari Hojo in 2015, that was the one he wanted to make as his big star. He really, and dating back to the Arceon days, there's times with Ayako Hamada, he tried to make a big star about her. So with him, he likes to do a coming of age story. And, last year, what personifies the coming of age story is Tam Nakano beating Julia in Budokan Hall in the hair versus hair match. Because if you follow Tam Nakano's story, she failed to win the Wonder of Stardom many times, and especially against her rival Julia, which they've developed this rivalry, she got to do it the biggest stage. So with Rossi, that's his main thing, is the coming of age story. That's his booking style. If we get concrete evidence that he booked in All Japan Women, he's only booked really one tragedy, and that is Akira Hokuto not being able to win the red belt, the 3WA belt, and her losing to Shikanobu Kandori in December at Sumo Hall, where if you ever seen the match, it's just basically the All Japan Women's roster crying while she's getting obliterated by Kandori. So if he's behind that booking, he's booked that one tragedy, but mostly with him, it's coming of age. It's persevering. It's taking your lumps, falling down, get back up. When I think of Ayako Hamada, it's the match with her and Aquino versus LCO, and it's just a bloodbath. But they win. Somehow they win. They win the tag titles, and that's basically his booking style. To sum it up.
Nice. So he also asks, is this run Stardom is on right now, stories and match quality, comparable or better to the recent glory days of NJPW?
I won't say with match quality, even though the matches are really, really good. And it's probably the best match quality, consistent match quality they've had in the history of their company. And it's a lot of it is because they've kind of, once they got the roster together, they've gelled. Throughout the pandemic, they've gelled, just working with each other and not have to work with a lot of foreigners coming in. And some of that you contribute to the people in place, like Mayu Itani's a trainer there, and Hazuki's a trainer there, but also Milano Collection ET. A lot of people don't know that Milano Collection ET is kind of like a overseer trainer there, and you could see it in the wrestling. I've never. Their their trios tag matches were not like they were pre Bushi Road. Now they feel like Dragon Gate matches,
Like
where this is
T2P?
all, yeah, like it feels like those T2P style matches, and a lot of that credit and structure. I mean, the women know how to wrestle. It's just like I've heard that he's not there a lot, but I could see that he puts finishing touches to their matches. And one thing that I kind of noticed during the Book and Hall show, because he did commentary, it seemed like every match he would leave the table just to run out, back away. So he must have been doing something, trying to communicate with other people. So with him, he's definitely got something there. But with match quality, it's not the level of New Japan, but it could get there, but it's not quite up there. But I think the storytelling, it's right up there with New Japan. And with them, to me, this a signifier for a good well-booked promotion is their stories up and down the card. You just look at the AEW with their sort of mini run. When you have undercard acts like the Acclaim getting over huge, you got something there. And it would Stardom, you look up and down the roster and looking up and down a random, just pick any pay-per-view that they've done. And God, they've done so many pay-per-views. They're about to do 26 this year.
Wow.
But you look, huh?
I said, wow.
Yeah. But you look up and down, there's a story every time, and there's entertaining characters throughout. I mean, just one that pops up is Saki Kashima. This wouldn't fly in American wrestling, but with her, it was like a subplot of her versus Shuri, her being extremely afraid of her during the 5-star Grand Prix. I couldn't think of a wrestler during the G1 who had a storyline like, hey, I'm definitely afraid of this other person that I'm about to wrestle. Pray for me. I don't think that would happen. Well, thinking about it, Kenny was like that, but Kenny was like that against Minoru Suzuki, but he basically wrestled, whereas Saki Kashima was definitely afraid of Shuri, but it ended up beating her with a roll up. So with that, you have just up and down the roster, you have really good storylines with the wrestlers involved, and I think that could be comparable to New Japan, because with New Japan, it can be a little bit uneven. A lot of it's top heavy in terms of the great storylines, but maybe down card it's not that much. Whereas Stardom, there's always something interesting down in the undercard, so that could be comparable to what it is. But the match quality, I wouldn't say is comparable. I did like the 5-star Grand Prix compared to some of the G1 stuff this year, but I wouldn't say that they've matched the match quality yet so far.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people saying how much they really love the 5-star Grand Prix this year compared to the G1. Doing a lot of great stuff over in Stardom. So we got the big historic crossover pay-per-view this weekend. New Japan and Stardom coming together to put this show on. So it is going to be on NJPW World through their pay-per-view model. So that's going to be $27 American, 2,980 yen. So you have to pay for that in addition to the NJPW World subscription that you pay. So we'll go over the card here, and Jay will definitely have you, chime in a lot more on the Stardom wrestlers, because we're not quite as familiar with them. And then we'll run through the show there.
What are you talking about? I watch Stardom. I know what's going on.
Sure you do. So we have 2 pre-show matches. So the first pre-show match is going to be an 8-man tag. We got the LA Dojo versus the Noge Dojo. So we'll have Alex Coughlin, Clark Connors, Gabriel Kidd, and Kevin Knight. And they'll be taking on Kosei Fujita, Oscar Lube, and Ryoi Oiwa and Yuta Nakashima. So this is Oscar's big debut here. He's from Germany, and he originally joined the Fale Dojo in 2019, and then COVID happened. He had to go back to Germany to continue his training, and now he's rejoining New Japan full. He entered the Noge Dojo in May, and we've seen him now at ringside. Zack Sabre Jr. is often, messing with him on ringside during New Japan shows. And so we're kind of continuing where we left off in 2019, where we kind of had this rivalry of the LA Dojo versus Noge Dojo. That was a big story in the Young Lions Cup that year. And so now with the border restriction open and we're starting to see New Japan wrestlers coming back, foreign wrestlers coming back in Japan, we're now seeing this kind of rivalry being reignited here between the LA Dojo and the Noge Dojo.
Well, the first thing I'll say is when that initial LA Dojo versus Noge Dojo feud was kind of transpiring back pre-pandemic, LA Dojo was clearly the ones that were getting the upper hand, and every single one of those guys was in the early infancy stages of their New Japan careers. They've all since gone on to become killers, and some of those same guys are here, and the ones who weren't part of that initial crew but are, included, like Kevin Knight, like he's incredible too. Gabe Kidd's been added to the fold, and then you got a bunch of like new young Noge Dojo guys. Like I don't see them even having a chance like at all. And not only do I not see them winning, like they're gonna definitely like hold their own, but I feel like they're gonna get murdered out here.
Yeah, I mean they got Coughlin, Connors, and Gabe Kidd. Like that was like three of the toughest of the LA Dojo right there. Kevin Knight, he's been killing it on New Japan Strong here in America, first time coming over to Japan. So yeah, I mean, I think the Noge Dojo, they're about to get rocked. Jay, you have any thoughts on these young lions?
I hope Kevin Knight gets a haircut, because it's going to be awkward when he sees Yoda for the first time. When they meet in the ring and they have the same haircut, so that's going to be awkward to see. But other than that, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a fan of the LA Dojo guys for sure.
Nice. So then, following that, we'll have a Stardom Rambo match. So the normal like Battle Royal Rambles that we see during Wrestle Kingdom in those pre-shows. So that'll be the second pre-show match. 15 wrestlers will be in this time Battle Royal. New entrants coming in every minute. Elimination is via pinfall, submission, or over the top rope. We don't have the official listing of who the wrestlers are. But Jay, I think you kind of speculating on who you thought would be in this Rambo.
Yeah. Stardom's had these type of battle royals before on their big shows. They had it last year in Budokan Hall and had it this year in Sumo Hall. And I think it's basically going to be the rest of the roster that wasn't featured on this show. The ones that come to mind are Saida, Koguma, Hazuki, Momokogo, Maya Mizaki, Natsuki Toro, Saki Kashima, like I mentioned before, Fuking Hidden Death, Waka Tsukiyama, the Pride of New York, Mirai, and Ami Sourei. There's others. I could have included, the twins, Hanan, Hina, and Rina, but I don't know if they're going to feature them. Maybe Hanan, because she's coming off of a big run for a Future Stardom Championship. She's coming off that. Ami Sourei is now the Future Stardom Champion. And I think Hanan's going to be someone to look out for in the next coming years, someone that Rossi's going to make a big star. Expect her to win Cinderella tournament in the next 2 years. But also, so with Stardom, they've brought in outside people to come in for their battle royals. And, the one in Budokan Hall, they brought in Chigusa Nagayo and Miyu Shimoda, who New Japan fans have seen before in the backstage area, especially with Jay White. Momo Nakanishi from All Japan Women's fame. Also, Nanai Takahashi could be in there. Yu Saki, who's part of Cosmic Angels. There'd be a lot of people that they could bring in. But mostly it's going to be a lot of people from the leftover roster that wasn't featured on the show.
My feeling is going into this as a complete, basically outsider to Stardom. I've got very limited exposure. There's going to be a lot of New Japan fans sort of like myself in the West, but also probably, from what I understand in Japan, there's a lot of like different wrestling camps of fandom. So with it being a crossover event, this is going to give them give Stardom exposure to a lot of that larger New Japan audience. If it was me, and I don't know if this is what they're going to do, but if it was me, I probably wouldn't try and book too many of those legends unless you did want to, get the major pop for one or two of them. But I would try to get most of my current roster on there, even if just to kind of gain a little bit more exposure and familiarity with those names.
Yeah, I totally agree. To build, to get the exposure, I think it's essential to get, a spotlight on some of the young talent that's coming in. What was it, a week ago? They did a thing with the YouTuber Fua-chan. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but she came in and did a match, and it was broadcasted on a TV show called Goretsu on Nippon TV, and they aired the entire match. But she was tagging with Hazuki, I think she's 24, but she's been with the company for a long time, so helped her out there. But also on the opposite, it was Sai Kamatani, who's still pretty young, even though she's basically one of the top wrestlers in the company. And then it was Hina, who is I would say she's 17, I would say, but she's a really good wrestler, and really, it was really good that they had the spotlight on her to wrestle in front of basically in front of the country on that TV show. And Rossi always does that, brings in someone that you'll see down the line, and one of Hanan's twin sisters, like I mentioned her before. So hopefully the three sisters will get into the battle royal. But even though like it could be really silly at times, I'll just forewarn you there.
That was gonna be my next question, was the layout of these, just because like most of New Japan's Rambos throughout history have been extremely subpar, and they're just kind of throwaway matches. They're not laid out like some of your better battle royal. Like for instance, like when I think of a really good pre-show battle royal, I think of like the All In battle royal that was just laid out immaculately.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, are we going to be getting something like that where these girls are all given a chance to shine and get their shit in, and we get to kind of get a feel for their character and all that? Or is it going to be a New Japan, / just all of Puroresu Rambo? Because I've never seen a good battle royal in Japan at all, ever, in any company.
Yeah. And last year it kind of got a lot of blowback because Kikutaro was actually in the battle royal, and he was doing some creepy spots, and people were not happy. He was, chasing the girls around and he was doing weird hand signals, and people were not happy that he was part of the battle royal. But like at the end of the battle royal, they basically kicked them out, and even the referee jumped in. So their battle royals can get really silly. So I'm just forewarning you and the rest of the New Japan fans. If you got up and get refreshments during this match, I wouldn't be offended.
All right, so let's move on to the main card here. So the first show on the main card is going to be the Chaos team of Lio Rush, Tomohiro Ishii, Yo, and Yoshihashi taking on the House of Torture, Dick Togo, Evil, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi. We got a question here from friend of the show, James Boyd, over at One Nation Radio. He says, how damning is it that Bushiroad is trying to impress, and Bull Club such House of Torture representation is just one match, and it's the first match on the main card?
Well, I mean, this match in particular is specifically designed to be a preview between Tag League, Super Junior Tag League, and World Tag League, and you've got Chaos and Bullet Club. It's a kind of a natural fit. I mean, there is the one positive you could say, in that most wrestlers, if you can't go last, you want to go first, and this is technically the opener of the show. So maybe someone could spin it from that degree, but yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. There is no other House of Torture or Bullet Club representation on the show, and it is supposed to be a big historic crossover, as we're going to keep saying throughout the podcast. And it is pretty telling that they don't have a bunch of Bullet Club guys on the show.
Yeah, we don't even have the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion on the show. So.
Yeah, I was about to question that. Why isn't Jay White on the show? And then House of Torture. I mean, they were on the GLEAT show that was on the New Japan World Pay-Per-View, right? Earlier this year.
Yeah.
So, I guess I guess you just got to put them. You got to find a spot for them somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, and this should be a fine opening matchup here. Like Josh said, previewing World Tag League, Super Junior Tag League with Leo Rush and Yo in the Junior Tag League, also Show and Evil. And then in the World Tag League, we have Ishii and Yoshihashi, and then Evil and Yujiro. So getting a little preview there. So then moving on from that, we have Queen's Quest, the team of Azumi, Lady C, and Saya Kamatani, taking on the Donna Del Mundo team of Himeka, Mai Sakurai, and Thekla.
Also, we didn't earlier when we were listing off the potential people in that Battle Royal, no one said Waka.
Leave that to Rich.
The funny thing is, I don't like if you show me a picture of most of the girls from Stardom, I'm not going to know who's who, but I know how to pronounce most of their names just from listening to One Nation Radio. So never seen them wrestle, don't know what they look like, but I know most of the names. And so I'm like, yeah, that person exists, but I don't know who they are, what they stand for, what group they're in, nothing.
Okay. So, with this match, I guess I'll try to break it down for you and other people that are not familiar. So, just running around the Queen's Quest team, it's Azumi. That's the first thing. People will see her name as AZM. I was listening to a podcast on The Ringer. They were talking about the PWI 150, and one of the hosts said, "Oh, because they were making a case for Mandy Rose or something like that," and they were like, "I'm dead serious." They were making a case for Mandy.
There is a case for Mandy Rose if you're just going by PWI 150 kayfabe. If you really think about it,
there is with kayfabe, yeah. But I swear to God, one of the hosts, I won't say which one it was.
You call her Azim?
Huh? Yeah. No, he said AZM. Great wrestler. AZM's great wrestler. Well, maybe we should put Mandy Rose in there. I was like, you don't watch. So
AZM, like that's not even something you could like even kind of mistake if you even watched it once. Like, you've never heard anyone say that. It's Azumi. Like,
no, it's funny. Ironically, Dave Meltzer himself has done that, and it's been hilarious. So I think now he doesn't do it. Yeah, he watches Stardom, but it's hilarious. He's done that before. He's like AZM, and it's like, no, it's Azumi.
Yeah, shuffling the notes. Yeah, AZM and Starlight Kid. Like, what?
It's similar when Brian Alvarez, he gets on. I'll never forget. Like years ago, he'd get on Wrestling Observer, and he'll read out like Dragon Gate results, and he'll be like EITA. No, it's ETA. Come on, man.
That was a great Alvarez impression.
I try. I mean, God, I've heard him so many years. It's good. I know his cadence, but anyway, with Azumi, she's the current high speed champion, and she's only 20 years old. Her and Thekla, if you're expecting high speed stuff, it will be from those two. They kind of have a little budding rivalry, and they'll meet up. They've faced each other before for the high speed title. Thekla had an injury earlier this year that kept her out and had her miss the 5-star Grand Prix. I don't know what it is. If it was my suspicion, I think it was a concussion because she got kind of knocked a little loopy in her last big match against Mayu Iwatani. But with them, they're going to do a lot of high speed stuff. Queen's Quest and Donna D'Amato have really good trios tag matches on the undercards on the house shows. So I wouldn't expect anything less. Lady C, she's the tallest wrestler on the roster. For her, she's only been wrestling for a little bit, from a high school teacher. I think she was homeroom. She did homeroom. So, but for her, she's really tall, and she does a lot of baba chops. So, you'll see her. And for people that actually, I think, well, Josh, did you watch any of the pre-show Stardom matches on the Wrestle Grand Slam show?
Yes.
So if you saw the Stardom matches, you've seen Lady C before. She was on the first show. She teamed with Micah, who will be on the show later. She's teamed up with her rookie Goto, but she was teamed up with Micah, and she was facing against who is now her stablemate in the same unit, Saya Kamatani. That match was Lady C and Micah versus Mo Watanabe and Saya Kamatani. If you remember that match, she was the tallest person in the match, doing choke slams and stuff, and she was really, really young in her wrestling career. I mean, in that match, so she's really improved. She still do the baba chops and stuff like that, but she's the tall one out of the group. And then you have Saya Kamatani, who is the Wonder Stardom champion. She's having a career year for herself. Some people say she's the best wrestler in Stardom. You'll get to see her, and if you've had to see her, she does the Phoenix Splash from the top rope. So you've probably seen her before, and she'll probably win. My prediction, she'll win again this year in this match. And then you have Himeka, who's the second tallest in Stardom. So Lady C and Himeka will go at it. And then Mai Sakurai, she's in the Don D'Amato group. Ironically, Mai Sakurai and Lady C, they're actually tagging together in the Stardom Goddesses, the Goddesses Tag League, which is kind of like your World Tag League or Real World Tag League equivalent in Stardom. And they're teaming together because they ran out of stablemates to tag with. So they're teaming, and their team name is My Fair Lady. So
when is that tournament?
It's going on right now.
Okay, so they're currently tagging together, and they're going to be opposite one another during this match.
Yeah, but the storyline is they don't get along. They clearly don't get along, and they've lost the opening matches they've had. And on the pay-per-view, if you watch the pay-per-view before, and another thing, Stardom's having a pay-per-view before this show. Their Gold Rush pay-per-view is literally the night before in Osaka. But yeah, when the opening night of their Goddesses of Stardom Tag League, they faced Fukigen Death and Saki Kashima, and they did not get along throughout the whole match. So that is their storyline, and they can't wait to get in the ring against each other to take it out. So
nice.
With that, yeah. So that being said, that's the match, and expect to be a good match, a good undercard match. They like to keep. That's the thing with Stardom. If you've never seen Stardom before, they like to keep it moving. It's no wasted motion, and a lot of the seconds ringside, they will smack the mat while the match is going on. So if you see during the show, you'll be like, well, how come the energy is not what it was in the Stardom? Not what it was from the Stardom match, New Japan match. That's why there's a lot of seconds around the ring, and that's the reason why they've kind of grown. It's like their energy level. They try to keep. They've done these little tricks like slapping the mat and doing the stuff, and they'll yell during ringside. A lot of these little tricks to get people into the match, even when it's a no clap. It's a no cheering crowd. It's mostly clap crowd. They'll do those type of tricks to get people into the matches.
Nice. And like you mentioned, Azumi, right now, she's the high-speed champion, and Saya Kamatani, she's the Wonder of Stardom. That's the white belt, right?
Wonder Stardom Championship is the white belt. It's replicated from the old All Japan Women's days, where it was, the 3WA belt. The 3WA belt, that's the red belt for All Japan Women, and for the white belt, they had. Oh man, I'm blank. People are going to be mad at me. I'm blanking for the white belt for All Japan Women, but that's basically what it's modeled after.
Nice. So also the Don Del Monte team, they're going to be looking to try and pin one of those champions to probably set up a title match at the next pay-per-view after historic crossover, right?
Yeah, because looking at it, earlier this year, Sai Kamitani and Himeka had a match for the white belt, and it was because it was actually what was scheduled to be the match with Sai Kamitani versus Kari, and Kari came down with his COVID, so Himeka stepped in last second and almost beat her for the title. It wouldn't be a bad thing to have them rematch down the road for the next pay-per-view, because ironically the night before, Sai Kamitani's defending the white belt against Kari, so we'll see with that match. I don't think Kari's going to beat her for the white belt, but we'll see. They do have, I think, 5 pay-per-views coming down the pipe, so for Stardom, so they need another white belt challenger, and Himeka would be a good choice. Either her or Tekla. I don't think Mai Sakurai would be is ready for that position to be like in the semi-main event, but Tekla is, and so is Himeka. Himeka has proved it before.
I think the old white belt was the All Pacific.
All Pacific, yeah, it was All Pacific title. Yep.
I cage matched it.
So moving on to the next match, we'll have the first mixed tag team match of the evening. So Shuri will be teaming up with Filthy Tom Lawler to take on Julia and Zack Sabre Jr. So this is going to be your standard mixed tag rules. When a man tags a woman, the other woman has to come in. So it's only woman and woman competing, men on men competing in these mixed tag match actions. And so, like I mentioned, Shuri and Tom Lawler against Julia and Zack Sabre Jr. here in this matchup. We know Shuri and Lawler both have MMA background, and then Sabre and Julia both kind of very technical wrestlers, and personality-wise seem to kind of blend together.
I think, actually, no. You know what? Never mind. I was going to say, well, technically it might be still considered, but I was going to say this might be the first ever mixed tag team match in New Japan history, but that really only depends if you count the tags, including Joni Lar from back in the 2000s. But I don't know if you count that because there was no other women on the opposite end. So this may technically be the first traditional mixed tag match in New Japan's history, really.
Yeah, I was going to say that with the Joni Laurer and China matches. Yeah, a good point. Yeah.
So how are we feeling about these teams, Jay?
It's going to be entertaining because I don't think the whole thing with the mixed tag rules, I think that's going to be out the window with these matches. Well, maybe not. In terms of maybe this match will be out the window because indications. Julie wants to smack Tom Lawler so bad. But, maybe the other matches, they'll stick to it. But I think this one, it kind of goes out the window. I know Karen Peterson, she was on Post Wrestling, and she said, like, this is the one where everybody kind of has the similar body types and similar heights and weights. So they kind of get away with it in terms of Shuri. She's tall and Julia's tall. So they can kind of get away with doing stuff with Tom and Zach. But with this match, Shuri, I think Shuri's gonna have a handful, coming down the road because Julia, I think with Stardom fans, it's going to be a preview. It's their preview for their big title match. How last in Battle on that was kind of a preview with Okada and Tama with Kenta and Jay White. This is kind of for them. This is their big preview match for the December pay-per-view at Sumo Hall. It's going to be Julia versus Shuri for the red belt title. And for them, hopefully they'll get some spotlight. I know the build up with Filthy Tom and Zach has been kind of kind of funny with the whole record stuff thing, but
Yeah.
with Shuri and Julia, it's a lot more serious because Julia basically brought Shuri in by storyline into stardom, into the promotion, and Shuri's kind of done a Shingo in terms of winning the world title under the current leader. And Shingo hasn't broken off with LIJ, but Shuri has with her group with Don Del Mondo forming God's Eye with Shuri, and they faced each other earlier in the year at Sumo Hall, and it was a great match. But this time with Julia winning the 5-star Grand Prix, we'll double back on it, and it's one of the better matches of the year. And to just get a preview, they always work well together, Shuri and Julia, even when they have to face each other in tags and stuff. So I wouldn't expect anything less. I think Filthy Tom's going to bring entertainment value, but then the point is to get over this match and to see how big you can make this red belt title match going forward.
So just so I can kind of gauge everything, it's kind of interesting where it's like, for the New Japan fans, sure, they're familiar with Tom Lawler and Zack Sabre, and obviously both guys are so technically, capable, and we've seen them kind of go at it, especially during the G1 on the undercard tags and everything like that. But it's primarily like like you mentioned, like a comedic sort of one-upsmanship sort of storyline where one of them loves Boy George, and one of them loves George Michael, and then kind of paired up with them, you've got Shuri and Julia, which is like literally a title program for the top prize in all of Joshi and in Stardom. So it's kind of funny in that way where it's like the guys are sort of the back seat to the girls in this particular match. And the way I'm looking at it, unless they're gonna do something crazy, it probably looks like a strong regular Filthy Tom Lawler is going to be the one taking the 1, 2, 3 in this match. So they're sort of the pin eaters for the girls in this match when you really break it down.
Yeah, I would think so. And with Filthy Tom, he loves Stardom. Anybody who listened to him on F4W Daily, he really loves the promotion. He got a chance to watch it when he was over at the G1. So he wouldn't. I got a feeling he wouldn't mind taking a pin here in this situation.
Well, it's not even that there's anything wrong with that. It's just because this is like an unknown. You don't know what to expect going into it, but then you look at it on paper, you're like, oh dang, like I guess that's what this is. Like essentially, Zach and Tom are the juniors.
Yeah, and it's really Tom because Zach has a big match coming up at the Tokyo Dome against Renderita for the TV championship, the new title that's coming out. So Zach has a big match for the Dome. Tom does not. So yeah, to me, I definitely see Tom eating a Zach driver here, getting European clutch or something like that.
Well, I think because of how much smack talk there's been with him on his radio show and everything like that, it'll probably play out that way, but not before like Julia like does something to him.
Yeah.
Like Julia's gonna smack him or something like that, and then like that's gonna lead to a roll up, or he's gonna get choked out or something crazy,
Yeah. So then following that match, we'll have the team of Black Desire, Momo Watanabe, and Starlight Kid. They'll be teaming up with the Suzuki-gun team of Doki and El Desperado. Then they'll be facing the Meltear team of Natsupoi and Tam Nakano, who will be teaming up with Suzuki-gun's Taichi and Yoshinobu Kanemaru.
The one thing that's already like starting to kind of stand out to me is like you look at the Stardom talent that was kind of displayed in the first match, and then you're looking at the girls that are on display here. And not to take anything away from, Doki, Despi, Taichi, and Kanemaru, but they're really, it feels like, so far trying to put their best foot forward and highlight their biggest stars in this crossover event. Whereas, like, New Japan's definitely using big names from the domestic side, but they're not necessarily the biggest stars teaming with them. So I almost wonder if this is going to be something to, again, put more shine and spotlight on the smaller brand Stardom.
Yeah, I would think so. Because like when some of the matches were announced, I was kind of perplexed. But like like Filthy Tom and Shuri versus Zach and Julia, I thought it was a fun match. But there was another match that we'll preview down a couple of more matches. I was like, where's Okada?
Right.
And there's one wrestler on the roster, on the Stardom roster, we'll talk about it later, that I thought would be perfect to pair with Okada versus Goto. I think Goto's paired with Mike, and I think that's a perfect pairing. Even though Tanahashi, I'll just say on the opposite side is Tanahashi and Utami. With Tanahashi, he is the ace of the promotion. The old ace, I guess. Whereas Utami, she's last year she was the ace of the promotion, and she's going to be the future star going forward, future leader of the promotion. But I thought the pairing of Utami and Okada would be perfect for that match. But and then there's other matches, but this match, yes, they're putting the best foot forward, but it's still kind of weird in a way because Meltier is a babyface tag team, and they're the current Goddess of Stardom tag team champions. But it's really weird that they're almost uber baby faces would be teamed with Taichi and Kanemaru. It's just like, what is going on here?
Well,
go ahead.
I did see the stuff that they had online where Kanemaru was trying to teach Natsupoi the like Satori Surprise, the whiskey, spray, and she hated it. Like she like absolutely was like not down with like the whiskey spray like whatsoever. So it's just kind of like this weird offbeat sort of, like this is such a strange mix. Like they don't go together.
Yeah. I mean, dating back to the Stardom X Stardom show in August, Taichi and Desperado, they made guest appearances on commentary, and it kind of been paired off since then. Going through social media, Taichi, he celebrated with Natsupoi and Tam when they won the tag team titles. It was kind of funny because Taichi's Lord Taichi, and he's evil and all this stuff, but you'd see him with these two big baby faces. You're kind of like, what's that? Whereas Starlight Kid, now she's been a heel for over a year now, and her being pairing up with Despy, that makes sense, but Taichi with them, it just doesn't. But what can you do?
Well, the one thing I would say too is like Suzuki Gun are kind of in this tweener, like they're definitely heel leaning tweeners at this point, but depending on what they're kind of like utility players. Whatever role is called upon them, they can fit into it. If they need to be like the badass heel cheaters in a match, they can be, but they've babyfaced them enough, especially like Taichi specifically, to where like if he needs to lean face and get over with the crowd and play comedy, like he can easily like shift modes really quickly.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good fact. With Despy, he's gotten a lot of fanfare the last couple of years. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and even with somebody like Doki, who's kind of been, the underdog fighter in the Suzuki Gun unit, I feel like he's been getting a lot of love from the fans too, just with him kind of being the underdog in a lot of matches, and that fan base really loving underdogs. And similar to the previous match, it seems like the focus here is on the Stardom stars. We have the tag champs in here. We got Momo Watanabe and Starlight Kid. So I'm thinking that maybe Black Desire is probably going to pick up a win here to set up a tag title match against the Meltier team.
Well, with that, they're kind of coming off of a loss already to Meltier. They're coming off. I'm trying to figure out which. When did they lose the tag team title match to them? I'll figure it out later when I pull it up. But yeah, they're coming off of a tag team title match where they lost. Black Desire lost to Meltier already. So The only way I think they can get a tag match would be another tag team title match is either here or winning the tag league, which I think they could do. They were tag team champions earlier this year, but they lost to the FWC, they lost to the FWC, and then FWC lost to the Meltier. So yeah, this would be kind of important for them to pick up the win. Black Desire here, but we'll see. I still have them kind of winning the tag league, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, one of the things I would say for someone like me that's kind of intriguing about this whole entire prospect is because I'm not that familiar with a lot of the like stardom wrestlers. I don't really know who, like, typically if I just looked at this on paper, I would tell you right out the gate Doki's going to be the pin eater just because it's Doki and he's the lowest man in the totem pole, and that may still be the case, but because I'm not as familiar with the dynamics between these teams, then it kind of just makes things a little bit more unpredictable for someone like me coming into it fresh. Like, I don't have those presuppositions about what will or won't unfold. Even if a lot of this is like quote unquote preview tags, it still just kind of leaves that intrigue for me because I don't know who's winning and losing.
Yeah. And I just pulled it up. It's just so many shows, but they lost on the November 3rd show for pay-per-view. Black Desire did against Meltier. So
with the way that they book, is it likely that they could get a rematch by winning here, or is it sort of like they've already lost, they're kind of out of the picture, and this is just kind of like a showcase match?
It's kind of like a showcase match. I mean, you could still build off of that. I mean, it's funny because the way the storyline that how Meltier even came together was basically booked off of rematches. If anybody heard about the Natsupoi Tam Nakano cage match, that was the first match this year of their sort of mini rivalry because they had a rematch at Corrigan Hall a couple days later. So for them, you could book the way of getting a rematch for the tag titles. But I just think because of tag league, I think there's a lot more scenarios coming along, especially right now with tag league going on.
So the way it's looking based on everyone's descriptions, I mean, Black Desire is probably not in line for a title shot, and they're teaming with Doki, so it's not looking good for this team.
Yeah.
The New Japan audience should be also somewhat familiar with Tam Nakano and Natsupoi. So Tam, she made her New Japan debut teaming with Mai Iwatani, taking on Shirin Julia at the pre-show of Wrestle Kingdom 15. And then she teamed with Saya at Wrestle Kingdom 16 against Mayu and Starlight Kid. And then Natsupoi was at the Wrestle Kingdom 15 pre-show dark match, teaming with Himeka and Maika to take on Utami, Azumi, and Saya. So there'll be some familiarity there with the New Japan audience. Tam, leader of her stable, Cosmic Angels. Natsupoi, part of that stable. So yeah, like you were saying, it definitely seems like, they're probably going to have the champs go over strong here, considering that they already recently defeated Black Desire.
Yeah. And I'll say this, watch out for fans. There are fans, like I said, I'm a fan of Jushin Thunder Liger. Somebody who I think could have not his type of career, but somewhat similar projection to Starlight Kid in terms of the women's side. When she comes out, she has like a variation of the Liger mask under her mask, which is like resembles the Tiger mask. And with her, with Starlight Kid, she kind of wrestles like Liger a little bit, really aggressive. Ever since she's turned heel, she's been really aggressive. She's small. She's going to be one of the smallest people in the match, but she works really aggressive and works good on top. So just keep in mind it's the first time you ever seen Starlight Kid, and also she's a high speed wrestler. There's going to be some sequences with her and Natsupoi, kind of gonna blow your mind. Hopefully that be incorporated with stuff like Doki and Kanemaru could do. If Kanemaru is up with it, I know he's up there in age, but he's still great. But Despy's Despy. So, and Momo Watanabe, she's vicious. If they break the rules, I want to see Momo and Taichi kick each other like Taichi did with Kota Ibushi. That's what I want to see. So I think it's going to be entertaining. Like up and down the show, I think it's not a lot of bad matches up and down the show. There's one match that I think is going to be really bad, but we'll get to that later.
Before we move on to the next match, one question I have: you've mentioned a couple times. Obviously, the rules are the women wrestle the women, the men wrestle the men. But there are probably those out there who are kind of hoping that they subvert the rules in some way and do have some sort of physical contact between the men and the women. We've seen in the past in New Japan specifically where there was that incident with like B. Priestley and Will Ospreay, where the public outcry was pretty big, where it was like, this is, man on woman violence, domestic, blah, blah, blah. But then on the opposite end, you heard people saying like, these are two trained pro wrestlers. This was, a planned spot. It's not what you guys are claiming that it is. Do you feel like there's going to be a camp dissatisfied one way or the other, whether they do or don't do man and women contact in a professional wrestling setting here?
I think so. I think there's going to be a segment of fans that just not going to like it. I mean, there's going to be a section of fans that just don't like women's wrestling, period. So they're going to be like, why are the women on the show in the first place? But you see that with all types of sports. I know Josh, you're a big boxing fan, and there's a lot of people's just kind of turn their nose up at women's boxing, but it's been on the rise this year, especially.
Yeah.
But some people said like, I just don't want to watch women punch each other in the face. It's just not. I'll never do that. And just with the man on woman violence, I think it could creep up here with the New Japan Storm show, but. If you do it well enough, you could subvert it and make it, and I think it'll be played more for comedy, but I don't think it's going to be that serious or that heinous.
They could do like the Ronda Rousey Triple H thing where, he bows up, but then ends up selling like death when she attacks him. They could do something like that if they really wanted to. And no one seemed to be upset about that across the board.
Right.
Yeah. I don't even through any of the matches, I don't think there's going to be a spot like, I don't know. Remember that viral spot that where I run around with Cedric Alexander and Candice LeRae?
Oh yeah, the backbreaker.
yeah. I don't think there's going to be like that. I hope there's not. Just because Twitter's already a mess, and it's just going to make it a big mess coming down the road. But I don't think there's going to be anything like that coming in. I think it's going to be more of the women hit the men, and it's going to be either played for laughs or it's going to be a key spot in the match.
But what about the opposite way? If they don't do it, are there going to be, how big is the outcry going to be for those who are like, dang, I wish they wouldn't have like handled this with kid gloves and they actually let them, do something?
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be that big of an outcry from that section of the audience. I think because that type of audience is not going to watch the show. Ironically, I think that type of audience is not going to watch the show. I think they're more sorted towards more of the indies. Even in the Japanese indies, they're more sorted towards that stuff, and not. But I think that type of crowd is really more.
Well, I didn't even mean like intergender fans. What I kind of meant was like, for instance, like people that are fans of both brands, I think are probably clamoring for, the interactions between the characters from both brands that they like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know how that's going to work, but
it's exciting either way because we just don't know really what they're going to do.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. Because I feel like the intergender crowd, the intergender fan crowd, they're not going to watch. I don't think they're going to watch the flocking to watch the show, but maybe they are. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, one last thing on this match, I just wanted to give a shout out to Momo Watanabe. That's been one of my favorite Stardom wrestlers. I saw her at the New York WrestleMania weekend show, the American Dream 2019 in Big Apple. She defended the Wonder Stardom title against Utami, and like ever since then, Momo has been one of my favorites. So looking forward to seeing her in action here.
Momo wears the white and the blue.
She used to. Yeah.
Okay. So I like Momo a lot. I like Starlight Kid a lot too, and yeah, this one's gonna be good.
Yeah, she used to. She turned heel last year.
Oh, I saw the turn. Yeah. That's right.
She's down.
And that turn didn't make sense because they wrestled each other, and then yeah.
Then she started hitting people with chairs.
Yeah,
very Dragon Gate-esque. But yeah, now she's dyed her hair blonde. She wears purple now.
She has a wrench that she puts in her kick pads.
Well, why isn't she teaming with Show? This makes no sense.
Yeah, you would think she'd be teaming with Show, but she's not. I think she does the wrench spot a lot better than Show with his antics. But I'm surprised we didn't get tagged with Show. So
there's a lot of people out there that do a lot of things better than Show.
Let's move on to the next match here. We have the Ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi, teaming up with Utami Hayashishita to take on Hiroki Goto and Maika.
Yeah, this was the match I was referring to. I thought that, I mentioned that it was going to, if Okada was in this match, I thought it would be incredible because Utami is basically like the Stardom version of Okada. She's really coming to the promotion. Ever since she came in her first match, she had a first match against Joan Keone and Russell Tool, like was it 15 or 20-minute time limit, and it was really impressive. And former Judica, and she's really progressed in her maturation as a wrestler, and even in terms of the looks that she's presented herself, I think she's really become Okada-esque in the promotion, and she's going to be a top player for years to come. And I think Tanahashi's the former Ace, and he's a legend in New Japan. But that's one, and I love Tanahashi. I think he's actually like if Liger didn't exist, he'd be my favorite New Japan wrestler of all time. But with him teamed with Utami, I thought Okada would be perfect against Goto and Maika in this spot, but wasn't a B.
It's also very interesting too, just looking at the card and some of your notes here, how some people have some big matches the day before that Gold Rush pay-per-view, and how the implications of that kind of play into the next night. So Utami, she's challenging Shuri for the red title the night before the Gold Rush, but clearly it seems like the main direction they're going is Julia and Shuri. So it's almost kind of giving away that match result there, thinking that Shuri's just going to retain to kind of build up the Julia match.
Yeah. I knew that the pay-per-view was happening, but I thought for some reason it was the next day. So I thought that this was in many ways previewing the big show, which I've heard from people that are in the know that that's going to be, on paper, looks to be even better than this show. But the fact that it's happening first, I do think that's kind of strange, because what if hypothetically, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but what if Utami did win? Then she's the red champion going into this match.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's really weird. And ever since Utami's lost the belt in December against Shuri, she's been basically she's been down pushed. She's been deep pushed down the card, and it's really weird because I thought last year was a really star-making year for Utami. She was booked really, really strong. One of the best red belt reigns in the company's history, and now that she's kind of been an afterthought throughout the year. I mean, she got a little bit of her mojo back through the 5-star Grand Prix and such, and then she'll have this match against Shuri because she picked up a win against Shuri on the second night of the 5-star Grand Prix. So that's why she's having the title match. But, it does give it away that she's not going to win it. Shuri and Julia is the match that everybody's basically clamoring for on Sumo Hall. I mean, the thing about it is Utami versus Julia has been protected for so long. I think if they ever run a big building like Budokan Hall or something even bigger, that will be the match. Utami versus Julia. That will be the match that will be the main event match that draws the fans. And that match has been protected for a couple of years now. I don't think they'll run it this year for Sumo Hall just because it's been advertised already that Julia and Shuri are going to face each other. But that's something if you're looking to get into Stardom, that's the one big match. If you hear that match, Utami versus Julia, run and watch that match immediately.
Nice. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that one coming up. So then following that matchup, the eighth match.
What's the prediction on this one? Because I don't know what we're looking at here.
With Micah is sort of becoming the Goto of Stardom. She's a really good wrestler, but it's never won a big singles title. She hasn't even won a big tournament in her career. I mean, dating back with her, she was a big standout. She was trained by Taka Michinoku, had just tapped out. Her first ever match was against Mima Shimoda, and she won. So with her and Utami, they came in right at the same time, kind of debuting in the same time period, and even wrestled against each other as rookies. And they had at the time they had similar looks, both judoka. And they've had the budding rivalry ever since, and they've wrestled each other throughout the years. And with her and Micah, it's another rivalry match coming into this match. Whereas Goto and Tanahashi do have history, but not like what Utami and Micah have, which they're still building their own rivalry down the road. Whereas Tanahashi and Goto, it's towards the end. Yeah, they've already had it, and so again, like Josh said before, it's kind of showcasing. It's showcasing the what's going on with Stardom, pushing them to the front. I don't think Goto or Tanahashi are going to take the fall here. I think Mike is taking the fall, so the guys are not going to be taking the pins, but Mike is taking the pin here. But yeah, this is going to be mostly a showcase for what Utami and Utami and Micah could do here in this match.
Yeah, it seems like Micah's kind of doomed here, being the Goto of Stardom, teaming with Goto. So yeah, definitely doesn't seem like their chances are very good.
Yeah, I do like that Micah's been taking shots at Tanahashi through social media. Tanahashi's birthday happened recently, and in a tweet, Micah quote tweeted him, said, "Wow, 1 year older than my mother. Happy birthday." So there's one. I like the going back and forth. Basically the women calling the guys old and stuff like that. So it's been pretty funny.
Well, moving on to the next match on the card, we have the LIJ team of Bushi, Hiromu, Sanada, Shingo, and Tetsuya Naito. They'll be taking on the United Empire team of Francisco Akira, Lord Gideon Gray, Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis, and TJP. So it's kind of a continuation of the LIJ and United Empire feud that's been kind of going on the last several months, especially with Naito and Will Ospreay, who just recently had a U.S. title match. So we're kind of seeing the aftermath of that kind of play out here with this multi-man matchup here.
Yeah, and I know I heard listening to you guys before, and you were talking about Lord Gideon Gray, and you were like, your wife came in and she was just like, ew.
Yeah, yeah.
Lord Gideon Gray, he kind of gives off that. I've been entertained by him. I'm not gonna lie, when he does his introductions, and I saw the not on a battle on him, but the night before on Osaka where he just comes in. I was surprised how many people were like happy to see him.
Yeah, he's gotten over very quickly with that domestic audience. I think his antics in the ring, his presence, the way that he announces the United Empire, just his whole role since being in Japan, the domestic audience has really been eating that up and really behind him. In Cork and Hall, you get these huge Gideon Gray chants on those nights where they were allowed to cheer, and yeah, they're super into him.
Yeah, and I like the United Empire. I know a lot of people they say whatever they want about Will Ospreay or even TJP, but they're a good unit. I like what they've done the past year and a half. Just Francisco Akira and TJP, they're a really good tag team, and Kyle Davis and Aussie Open. Kyle Davis, Mark Davis and Kyle Fletcher. Getting tongue-tied here. They're a really good tag team, and I've really enjoyed Night Empire as a whole, up and down with Cobb and Okan and Ospreay. Every time I watch them, they're pretty much breath of fresh air. And then previewing this match, LIJ matches, I could watch 100 LIJ multi-man tag matches. I'm never bored by them because they're always fun. They're always fun to me, and it's not going to be a bore or a skip for me. I always stick through and watch those. Every time I come through, watch an undercard, I always watch the LIJ match.
Yeah, I think today in 2022's New Japan landscape, these are the two best teams at doing the multi-man match. And I think you've got a really good mix of some of the best guys from those two groups to kind of go out there and, have a fun, fast-paced, showcase undercard, multi-man tag team match.
Yeah, and United Empire, they're one of my favorite factions right now in New Japan. I really love what they've done with the faction over the last year. Added a lot of new members, really strengthening that unit there. And they've are right up there, like Josh mentioned, with LIJ and kind of being one of these great teams. No matter who you put in that multi-man match, whether it be 6-man, 8-man, 10-man tag, whoever you throw in there, you get these very high-paced, very entertaining matches. And TJP and Akira, the Catch-22 team, they're the junior tag team champions right now. They've picked up a lot of momentum very quickly, teaming together and winning those titles, and they've formed an excellent tag team. And then obviously you got Aussie Open, they've had a wonderful year this year with all over the world, especially with their matches against FTR recently at the Royal Quest show. United Empire, they're a breath of fresh air in New Japan right now. They're just an awesome unit, and I like what they're doing. And so, it should be a great preview match here. I'm sure we'll continue to see, the antics with Naito and Gideon Gray continue here throughout the Battle Autumn Tour. Naito was stealing Gideon Gray's coat, his cane. So I'm sure
still got it.
Yeah. So
when I saw Naito with that coat, I was like, Naito looks homeless. Like, what's going on here? Then I found out he stole Gideon Gray's coat. I was like, oh, that makes sense. But it's hilarious. He comes out with the coat, the LIJ T-shirt, and the coat's so long it covers his trunks, so wear no pants. And it's hilarious every time I see it.
It is a funny idea just because of all the years we've seen Naito for his big matches come out with the trench coats and, the elaborate jackets. And then suddenly he's in this homeless man's overcoat. And it's even funnier because Gideon Gray's supposed to be this huge, financial benefactor for the United Empire. He's supposed to be the money mark, but he dresses in these really homely, sort of, things. One thing that happened too last week, we didn't make mention of it on our review, but leading into the Osaka show, they did the whole Reservoir Dogs thing where every single member of United Empire came out in a suit with a white jacket or whatever, and they all looked fresh to death. But the one guy that, if you paid close attention, was out of place was Lord Gideon Gray. And I don't know if this was on purpose or not. I really don't know. But he was wearing a black suit, black tie, brown belt, brown shoes. And I'm like, aren't you the rich guy? Like, why are you wearing this? And I don't know if it's like on purpose or if he just actually didn't know. And like, I think both ways works with his character either way, you know?
Yeah, that was hilarious.
He's so great.
He looked like the Steve Buscemi character from Reservoir Dogs, though. Like, he really did. Like, you look like a cop. Like, you look like a cop. He looked really out of place there.
That's true. I've never thought of that. But like, if there was ever like, let's say if like Gideon Gray, I don't know, like if they decided to cast him in a role, Steve Buscemi should play him 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so in this matchup, yeah, Gideon Gray is probably definitely eating the pinfall here. If you look who's on the other side of things, so yeah, LIJ probably getting the win here.
Either that or Naito, he loses. Can't win the big one, so
Oh boy, not touching that one.
Let's move on to the next matchup here. So we have the Chaos team of Kazuchika Okada and Toru Yano. They'll be teaming up with the Great Muta to take on the United Empire team of Aaron Henare, Great Okan, and Jeff Cobb. We did have a question here from Rambo and Slayer Pig. He says, I see Jeff Cobb is still listed for Muta's match, a historic crossover, but is not involved in Tag League and got pulled from the Tamashi shows. Any update on his condition? So Jeff Cobb was pulled from those Tamahashi, New Zealand, Australian shows due to personal reasons. So it doesn't seem like he's going to make it to historic crossover. Not 100% clear. There hasn't been any announcements as of this recording. So maybe Cobb gets dropped out and they switch it to a straight up tag with Hanare and Okan against maybe Okada and Muta.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing too because of the high profile of this match in particular, having Great Muta and the Great Okan and all the storyline and build that's kind of preceded this. You would think that by this point, with us knowing that Cobb is out, they would have made some sort of announcement, but it's not always New Japan's strong suit to always 100% of the time have perfect communication when it comes to stuff like this. You would think that they would, but that's not always the case. So maybe he will be in it, and we just, maybe it's too big of a match for him to miss out, and that's the one date he's keeping right now, or maybe they're going to replace him or change the match format. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know if Jeff's injured or not. They said personal reasons. Maybe something came up where he had to miss the Tamahashi shows in New Zealand and Australia. So yeah, maybe he will be on his card and then take more time off, especially since he's off for World Tag League. But yeah, this whole match came together with the TV title tournament when Okan was facing Toru Yano in the first round match, and lights went off, went back on. Great Muta was there, made his surprise return to New Japan, shooting the green mist at Okan's face, causing him to lose to Toru Yano in that TV title tournament. And we've seen this little weird rivalry develop between the Great Muta and Great Okan based off of them teaming together in Noah, and Muta's misting Okan there. And so we're just kind of seeing this thread continue throughout Muta's retirement tour, having this feud with the Great Okan. And then, Okada wanting to team with Muta, and Yano very thankful for the help there. So that's how that team kind of came together. And then, of course, Okan, part of the United Empire, calling in Aaron Henare and Jeff Cobb here to get this 6-man tag.
Now, I'm going to ask you guys this. Is this, because I saw people saying, well, this is technically might be Muta's last match in New Japan. I don't think so. I don't think so personally. Do you think that this is foreshadowing a program with him and Okan at the Dome?
So my only thinking with that is he's got that match on 1-1 against Nakamura, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe he can't keep that Tokyo Dome date, but you might be right. I don't think that that's outside of the realm of possibility. I'm wondering if he's angling to get into a match with Okada.
Could be.
Jeremy's kind of shaking his head, but I think once you look at it on paper and you start thinking about it and you think about Muta's track record, this might just all be a swerve to get Okada and Muta in a match together before he bows out, which I don't even think he's actually going to bow out anyways. Like, I remember a few years ago, I don't know if you guys recall this, but like he did the whole tour where it was like, this is the final time he's going to use the moonsault, and there were like 6 matches.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like, I'm doing another tour, but this time it's the last time Keiji Muto uses the moonsault.
The final moonsault. Yep.
He did like a second tour under the other character's name. And then after it was all over and all those people paid the money and they thought that they saw his final moonsaults, he kept doing it. So like, I have no reason to believe that this whole entire tour and, you know, all the dates and yada yada, like, I don't even think that he's really retiring personally.
I don't think so either. I've had a, Muta and Liger were my gateways into, and basically, and for a lot of people, it was my gateways to Japanese wrestling. But, with Muta, recently, it's kind of soured his legacy to me. And my thinking is that Muta is not going to do. I thought the best thing for Muta these last couple of years, and I know it was probably too expensive for him to run, was that Pro Wrestling Masters promotion. I thought that was I was one of the few people that enjoyed it. I watched. It was like kind of like you're watching like senior tour wrestling. You can see all the seniors. You see Ricky Choshi come out and maybe Fujinami come out. I know Liger did a match there.
It's kind of what tradition is at this point, really.
Yeah. And I thought, because it used to air on Gaora TV, and probably like once every 2 months or once every 3 months. And I kind of enjoyed it. It's something you just put on the TV while you're doing stuff and just watching. You see all the old guys come out, and Corgan would always be packed for those shows, and they always react big to all the old guys coming in. And I thought that was going to be his lane, just bringing in old guys and go that route. Tradition's more, it's more Fujinami's thing. You'll see more of the slow grappling stuff, whereas Pro Wrestling Masters is more kind of entertainment based. They brought in a lot of other people, but to vary up the card, but it was more of an entertainment. And I thought that was Muta's, lane to do. And it's not been that, and Noah's kind of pivoted themselves as the senior tour of wrestling in terms of that. So, it's kind of weird, and it's because I think go ahead. Yeah,
that whole idea of the Masters tour and all these guys going out and playing themselves, but like older versions of themselves. That kind of reminds me of like you hear the stories of like in the 90s back in the UK, all the like the vacation like wrestling promotions where you had like fake X-Pac, fake Undertaker.
Yes.
It's like the same idea. It's like you see the guys coming out to play the characters that they used to be, but they actually are the guys that played them. So it's like it's not that far off from that.
Yeah. But with Noah, like they have a bunch of guys. You guys probably talked about. They got a bunch of young guys that they can go with, but they're still going with these big older stars. And I enjoy Noah's product. I enjoy the commentary team. I enjoy the production. I think Noah has the best production value. Even kind of beats New Japan in certain ways.
It does.
Yeah.
But with this Muta thing, like it's really turned me sour to everything that he's done lately. It's not. I mean, I won't say there hasn't been entertaining matches. The Kiyomiya match was entertaining. Even the Go Shiozaki match, where he won the belt, was kind of sort of entertaining. But it's just been over and over. And I know what they're trying to do, especially with Abima TV. I don't know if you guys were familiar with what they put on, the kickboxing match they put on during the summer with Tenshin and Takaru that drew like 50 or 60,000 people. Those seats were going insane in terms of just high, lots of high price seating at ringside and stuff like that. I wonder if they're going to go that route because, around that fight, there was like something I've never seen before in terms of a Tokyo Dome seating where they were bringing luxury chairs into the arena for ringside seats. I wonder if Abima and Cyberfight's going to do the same in terms of doing it for Muto's retirement show. Just charge out the wazoo for ringside seats and stuff like that. I wonder if they're going to do that.
Well, I think those are already sold, but
Right.
they did charge an exorbitant price for all of them. I mean, I don't know if they could expand. Who knows what the layout is, but yeah, they might do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's the playbook that Amoeba and Cyberfight's doing. Just trying to follow that kickboxing event because that did so much money. I mean, what was it, like 20? It was a $20 million gate or something like that. It was so huge, and I don't know if Muta is a big star in Japan, but I don't know if it's going to be to this extent where they're going to pack in, even 40,000 people. I don't think it's going to touch that, but I just wondering what's going to be the end game for it because. We know he's not going to fully retire, but
yeah, and I think the thing is, like you mentioning, just like the gate and the money. I think Muta is realizing like how much money these final quote unquote shows are doing, and I'm sure after we see the gate from that big January 1st show with Nakamura, like I'm sure he's gonna kind of continue to find ways. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. My real like retirement tour, and it's gonna kind of continue to extend. Like you mentioned, like him getting a match at the Dome. Like I hadn't initially thought about it, but now that I do think about it, I'm like, what better way than to like really kind of get another extra payday and to really have a big kind of send off than having a match at the Dome. And we're back to a one night Tokyo Dome card this year for New Japan, and you want to have things that really make it seem big and special. And right now, Great O'Connor doesn't have anything. He's in the tag league, but I doubt that him and Hanare are going to win the tag league. So a big spot for Great O'Connor could be to have that big last, quote unquote, last singles match for Great Muta in the Dome for New Japan.
Yeah, I think if this was going to actually be, and it was determined already, it was going to be the final Muta match in New Japan, they would say it. It would be billed as such. And so far, that hasn't been the case. The only thing we've heard is on commentary is like, maybe it could be. You just never know. I mean, but I think that there's money to be made in potentially doing a final New Japan match, whether that be on 1-4 or whether that be in something else afterwards. I mean, I could see Muta showing up at New Year's Dash and doing an angle for them to do some big house that we don't even know they're planning on doing next year in in February or March or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think those are still viable prospects that are on the table. But one other thing I just want to make mention is I was watching Noah today because obviously that's the recommended match or the excursion match of the week. And my girlfriend was there watching it and she's like, why does this look better than New Japan? I was like, the production levels are really good. And she's like, well, why don't you watch this? And I was like, I don't have the time. And then I was trying to explain to her the backstory about like Muta. And she's like, oh, so he's Hogan. And I was like, yes. And I was like, except there's like 6 Hogans in this company right now. And I was like, the reason I don't watch is because, they got Eddie and, Jericho and Ray and all those guys, they're holding them down, and they got Nash, Hall, and, Flair and Hogan and Macho Man on top right now.
It's like TNA Hogan era where you had all, main event Mafia, Hogan, Steiner, all those guys pushing down AJ and Joe and Daniels.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, you should have been like, sit down, let me tell you about Cass Vegeta.
No, because if I did that, her eyes would just roll over and be like, all right, I'm done with this.
All you gotta show is him getting knocked out in Pride, the Vanderlei Silva knockout. That's all you gotta do.
I don't care. I love Fujita. Like that's the one guy. That's the one old guy I'll give the pass to. I don't care what anyone says. Like, is he unprofessional? Yes. Like, does he is he not that big of a star? Like, yes. Like, but I don't care. I love Fujita. Oh, one other thing too. I want before we move on, and you were making a great point, Jeremy, about as time goes on, Muta is seeing that there's like more and more money to be made. But let's not forget that before jumping to Noah, he wasn't drawing for years and years and years and years. And it's like just the perfect culmination of like time and opportunity that's created the scenario that we're in right now. And I can only see if he, like, let's say if he fully retires, I think he comes back, and I can only see it going one of two ways. Either he like cashes in for like a big, huge payday because it's too enticing for him to come back, or it'll just be to diminishing returns like so many other legends, to where like he'll just continuously, like, he's not going to stay doing these huge numbers. The only reason they're doing it is because it's his send off, and people actually think that they're watching his real send off, and it's not.
Yeah, they're getting worked.
Yeah, which is what wrestling is. So maybe they're doing it right. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought I saw Undertaker's last match against Roman Reigns, WrestleMania 33.
That's funny. They didn't even say it was, but he folded up his jacket. He put his gloves in the.
Yeah,
he thought he was done.
I thought he was done. Yeah, he lost. He put the gloves in. Like it's a wrap.
But it's funny because with Keiji Muto, like, I remember that Wrestle Kingdom when he faced Tanahashi for the title. I thought he was wrapping up then.
People thought that was the send off. They're like, oh well, Muto's obviously on his way out. This is pretty much it.
Yeah, I thought that was legit, passing the torch, and he would wind down. And almost 20 years later.
It was, I mean, if we're being honest, it was the only like passing of the torch that he like legitimately did that stuck in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
I give him a little bit of credit for that, at least.
It's here, Peloton's best offer of the season. Get up to $300 off accessories when you purchase a Peloton tread. Choose from accessories like a heart rate monitor, non-slip grip dumbbells, yoga blocks, and more. If you've been looking for a sign to join Peloton, this offer gives you everything you need to get going. Hurry, Peloton's best offer of the season is here, but not for long. Visit onepeloton.com to learn more. All access membership separate. Limited time offer cannot be combined with other offers. See additional terms at onepeloton.com.
When you drive the brand ranked #1 in dependability by J.D. Power, you can stop thinking about what you can't do and start doing what you never thought possible. Visit your local Kia dealer today to see yourself behind the wheel of the brand ranked #1 in dependability by J.D. Power. Kia, movement that inspires.
Call 800-333-4KIA for details. Always drive safely. Kia received the fewest reported problems among all brands in the J.D. Power 2022 U.S. Vehicle Dependability Study based on 2019 models. See jdpower.com/awards for 2022 details.
This podcast is brought to you by Udemy, a leading destination for learning and teaching online. Need to learn professional skills for your career? Join millions of people learning the latest skills in business and tech on Udemy. Udemy has helped learners around the world launch new careers, advance in their current field, and earn money on the side. Visit udemy.com and find the course for you.
So moving on to the semi-main event on this show, we have the IWGP United States Heavyweight title on the line. The champion, Will Ospreay, will defend against the Roughneck, Shota Shooter Umino. So like we mentioned last week, Umino, returning from excursion from Rev Pro, attacked Will Ospreay to set up this matchup here. They did previously wrestle at Royal Quest, where Ospreay, there was that controversial finish. Ospreay was throwing the elbows to the back of Umino's head. Umino's dad, Red Shoes, was a ref. He stopped it early. And so now there's a lot of questions on, on that whole angle, how that's going to play into Umino's future and how that's going to play into this rematch here. And, we're seeing right now a lot of young lions come back from excursion, getting big pushes. Ren Narita facing Zack Sabre in the Dome. Hikuleo, he's about to be the never open weight champion. So we're seeing these young lion guys come back with that 2018, 2019 class. Guys are coming back. Obviously, Great Ocon and everything he's doing there. A lot of these guys are getting their footing. They're getting pushes. So the big question is New Japan gonna strap the rocket to Umino here and have him beat Will Ospreay, his first match back from excursion, and become the U.S. champ? Or are they gonna go a Jay White route, have him have an excellent match but lose, and then kind of build him up from there?
Well, Jeremy, I think you did a great job giving us that very vital recap, especially the part about Real Quest, because a lot of people needed to hear that. You know why?
Because nobody watched it.
So few people saw that shit. It took them 14, 15 days to put that stuff up on New Japan World in 2022. For shame. No, but yeah, we've seen these guys in high-profile matches recently, just in the past year alone, twice. And the last match they had in England was vastly superior to the first one that they had back in like November of last year. We've seen huge market improvements from Shooter Umino, and the last match that they had when we saw it, I think both your and I's opinion was that the match was very good, but that they were leaving a lot on the table, and the way they ended the match so prematurely, it seemed like we've got this match and the big return of Shota Umino, and I gotta say, I don't think that because Wrestle Kingdom's right around the corner, I would be really flabbergasted if they took the title off Will Ospreay and put it on Shota Umino like a couple months before the Dome, especially since he just beat Naito, who probably is a more viable candidate to beat Will Ospreay. But I am looking forward to this one quite a bit just because it is the big return of Umino. I want to see what he has to offer on this stage with this opponent, and I think it's going to be really, really, really good. Either way, win, lose, or draw, it's going to be a huge coming out party for Umino, and Will's going to do everything in his power to make him look as good as he possibly can. And ultimately, my call is this is leading to Mox and Will Ospreay for the Dome, especially if they can't arrange the Kenny Omega Will Ospreay thing between now and then. Although, who knows? It looks like they're coming back. Maybe Kenny, shows up on the screen and we get the big, surprise promo at the end of the night or at the end of this match. I don't know. JML, what are your thoughts on all this?
With this match, I think you two guys nailed it. I think that the Mox match is most likely going to come because of the controversial nature that Mox beat Ospreay at Windy City Riot. I think they're due for a rematch. I was surprised that around in AEW, I think it was all out. When AEW had Punk versus Mox, like was the week before or 2 weeks before in Cincinnati, I thought that match was in question, like if they're going to do another rematch. And I was like, what if they put Will in the match against Mox? But maybe it was too protected from New Japan that it was going to happen. So I would love to see Mox versus Ospreay again, and especially at the Dome. Another outcome that could happen is if Umino wins, the first challenger is basically his mentor, Mox. Him versus Mox, and then you split up. You can have another match with, have an angle where Ospreay's sad again, and then Kenny shows up one more time, just to torment him, and you could have that match. It won't be for a title, but it'll just be a great match. It'll be a grudge match for them. So you could do it that way. Have two matches where Shota kind of needs it and needs the rub, and he'll face Mox for the U.S. title. That would be great. And then you have Ospreay and Kenny, which would be another great match, automatically. So you could do it that way.
I think that echoes a lot of the booking behind Omega dropping the belt to Jay White all those years ago. Was like he dropped the belt, but it led directly into the hot feud between him and Cody and the Golden Lovers reunion. And it was kind of like, Jay White who, and it was a great way to get the belt off of him. I'm not saying they're going to do what you're mentioning there, JML, but like if they booked it right, not just the booking, but with the right like program behind it, the right like segments, that could be fantastic. Like I wouldn't be opposed to that outcome at all. Like ending up with Mox and Shota Umino 1-on-1, and then ended up with Kenny and Will. Like that's an incredible like 2-series program for the Dome. Like that'd be so cool.
Yeah. Especially since you're not doing it for 2 nights. Like to me, if you're doing it 2 night, if they were doing another 2-night Dome, then I would actually see, Shota winning this match, and then having another match, having a match with the Will versus Mox at the Dome, and then the second night would be the winner of that match going against Shota Umino. But you don't have a 2-night Dome, and you're trying to stack other traditional Dome show. But to me, you got to get as many big matches as you can to fill up that Dome and sell as many tickets. To me, splitting off that match and you could still have the Kenny and Will match, but also get more bang for your buck and have Shota versus Mox, because I think what Mox could do, giving Shota the rub, would be tremendous. But that's my opinion. I don't know.
Hey, if it happens, you said it here first. You're going to be the one that gets to take the victory lap.
Yeah, I think something too that could play into maybe the result of this match is what's going to happen at the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view the night before.
I was wondering about that.
John Moxley's in the main event defending against MJF, and I don't know, I have a hard time seeing Mox show up at the Dome with the AEW World Title, especially with it being a Wednesday, January 4th.
Jericho did it.
I don't know. I just feel like they would. I don't know. I feel like if a Wednesday Dynamite and Mox is champion, TK might want him there. I guess you could do pre-tape.
There's a bigger show. There's a bigger fuck Seattle. The Tokyo Dome is calling.
You could do, I guess, pre-tape promos with Mox to get him on the AEW show. But I feel like if he drops a belt, I think it's a sure sign that he will be at the Tokyo Dome if he's not the champ, and either challenge Ospreay for the U.S. title, or set something else up for him at the Dome.
With how hot MJF is right now, that's not out of the question at all. So, yeah, I think that those are some intriguing things to think about. We do have a couple questions regarding this match before we talk about the main event.
Yeah, friend of the show, Rich Latta says, would Will Ospreay rather be teaming with Azumi?
I don't know. The only thing I know about Will Ospreay when it comes to Joshi is the gif where he's like, "Oh, I love women's wrestling.
I love Joshi Pro Wrestling.
Oh, I love Joshi."
Yeah. With Will, it's funny because Will he knows how to push the right buttons, but he's really a Joshi mark in all loving ways. He actually, with Azumi, when he was with Bea Priestley, he had a relationship with Bea Priestley. He used to come into the Stardom Dojo and help the girls out, train and do stuff. There's a couple of training sessions with him and Azumi and Saya Kamitani. If you watch Saya Kamitani, she is trying to be Will Ospreay and Kota Ibushi, mixed together. That's her game. So,
that sounds like the best wrestler that ever lived. So.
She's not quite, but with Azumi, Azumi said Will's kind of like a wrestling dad almost. So with Azumi, that was one of those things. Like I was surprised that late in the game that Will was announced for this card, but he's announced against Shota. But I would have been. I think he would have loved to tagged with Azumi or Starlight Kid or someone in the high speed division just to be on this show. He would have loved to do that. To me, but against Shota, it's going to be a great match either way. He's a walking 4-star match. Everything that I've seen of him, I think he's great talent, and I'm happy that he's still with New Japan all these years.
Yeah. I also had a question here from the Broken Poet. Says, what do you think happens in the Roughneck Showdown match? Do you see them dragging out this out to Wrestle Kingdom? And what if Red Shoes is the ref? Hopefully not.
So I think we kind of gave our projections and predictions, but I do think he brings up a great point. The fact that Red Shoes Umino, being his dad, had only refereed one other match in Shota Umino's entire career, and then he was the referee for the Royal Quest match and ended it prematurely. And JML, you brought up a really great point too, that there was that previous questionable stoppage that had happened earlier in the year in the Mox match. So it's almost like those two matches kind of echo one another. And in both cases, Red Shoes was the referee. And so I think there is going to be the intrigue if he does end up being the one refereeing the match. Is there, still those questions of conflict of interest because it is his son who's returning, and how does that all play into the story? It's kind of uncharted territory when it comes to New Japan.
Yeah, and I'm guessing because this is the semi-main, and I guess Red Shoes would be refereeing this match. I'd be shocked if he's refereeing the main event because Stardom has their own Red Shoes in Daichi, and he's been around wrestling for years. He's actually ref for New Japan and All Japan, but he dates all the way back to the All Japan Women's days. He's been refereeing that long, but for this match, yeah, I don't know if they're gonna drag this out. I have to rewatch the Royal Quest match because I had it on earlier today. I just got busy with stuff in terms of real life work stuff, but yeah, like if they do another angle, with Red Shoes, I'd be interested to see what goes on, down the road if they run an angle saying, Shota can't have him in the matches anymore or whatever. And I know New Japan isn't that dramatic, in terms of storytelling with that, but it'll be add a new wrinkle to it if he's involved in the finish once again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're gonna do. I mean, I hope they don't harp on that relationship too much and kind of keep having these kind of screwy finishes with him. And who knows? Maybe this ends up to him beating Ospreay somehow, and Red Shoes missing a call for Ospreay and helping his son win. So who knows what's gonna happen? But either way, I think it should be a great matchup. So let's move on to the main event of this show, and it's going to crown the first ever IWGP Women's Champion. So we have Mayu Iwatani taking on Kairi. They have a 3-2 head-to-head record with Iwatani having the 3 there in that record. So this will be the 6th time that they've faced off, and we're going to crown our first ever IWGP Women's Champion.
Yeah, I think just for me, looking at this, when the brackets were first kind of announced, we figured out who the participants were. This just made the most sense for a lot of reasons. With them talking about what this title was supposed to be, something that was defended both in Stardom, but also major shows in New Japan, as well as internationally in the West, over in the US. For like Strong and maybe other, probably US pay-per-views, it made sense that the two most high-profile stars from a Western perspective would probably headline. And that's what we ended up here. Obviously, Kairi is sort of making history in the fact that this is the first woman to ever headline a pay-per-view for both WWE, Stardom, and New Japan ever in history. So that's a big deal there. And then, ever since her and Io Shirai left to go, stateside, it's kind of been Mayu Iwatani who's been like the figurehead and focal point of Stardom. Even if she wasn't the champion, she's always kind of been like the heart and soul of the company. Started with the company, came up through their dojo system, and has even really represented them well when working either like in the UK or in the US via like Ring of Honor and stuff like that. So they probably are the two most recognizable Stardom names from a Western perspective at this current time. And considering all the history behind them, it just makes a lot of sense that this is the match that they would go with. Both women are, you know, top 5, top 10, women wrestlers in the world currently. At many times they've both probably been near the top in the past decade. So I mean, this is a pretty high profile, very prolific type match. I'm excited for it, and I don't know. I mean, Mai Iwatani was the SWA champion. She just, recently relinquished that belt. I don't know if they're going to continue with it or if this new belt is going to sort of replace it in a certain, spiritual sense. I don't know, but I'm just looking forward to it. Like, definitely, because I being someone who hasn't really followed Stardom, I haven't seen too much of Kyrie since she returned to Japan. But I've always been a big fan of hers, and Mayu's one of, if not the best. So this is just going to rule. It's going to be incredible, and I probably also expect it to be high drama and very emotional as well, just considering the history there.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing that kind of throws this match off is that Kyrie, like I said earlier, is challenging for the white belt literally the night before against Saya Kamatani. And that's been a hype match for months now, especially since Kyrie came down with COVID. So with that, I don't know if it's kind of giving it away because I don't think she's going to beat Saya Kamatani. It would be weird for her to come in as the white belt champion for this match. But with them, if you've ever seen Kyrie and Mayu face each other, they have really good chemistry. I wouldn't expect less than a great match from these two. The last time they faced each other, it was during Mayu's run in 2017, where she won the Wonder Storm title. She beat Kyrie and then went on to beat Io Shirai for the World Storm title to unify the titles. And it was basically the biggest push of her career. And if people don't know, that ended prematurely because she faced Toni Storm and she basically broke her arm during the match and had to forfeit the match. And Toni Storm became the World Storm champion. So with that, Mayu won the last match. Rossi does sometimes do even Steven booking, even if it's years later. So I personally think Kyrie's going to win the first IWGP Women's Championship. I know that for either one, it makes sense because you just brought Mayu over. She could come on New Japan Strong shows. She has a visa now for this year, or the following calendar year, so it'd be easy for her to come in. But for Kyrie, I think just having an international presence with her being the former WWE wrestler, I saw one of the questions coming from JD's thinking, who's the bigger star, Mayu or Kyrie? I think in Japan, Mayu's the bigger star, but Kyrie, in terms of if you want to expand the Western audience, she's a familiar name that everybody can grab on. And New Japan hasn't used her a lot. I mean, not New Japan, Stardom hasn't used her a lot. And because she does have outside work, she just opened up a new gym. So she's been doing that, but she hasn't worked a lot of Stardom. She's basically become one of the part-time legends for them. So right. If she wins this title, she can get increased bookings for the next coming years, not just with Stardom, but also New Japan and New Japan Strong. So I could see that being the case for her with this match.
It also feels like this title is going to kind of be a part-timer belt anyways, so that might fit into what she's doing anyways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because with Mayu, she faced Shuri. I mean, Stardom had a back-to-back in March with Sumo Halls, and I mentioned that Shuri beat Julia, but the next night she beat Mayu Iwatani. I encourage everybody who's listening to go out and watch those matches. They're really good. But after the Shuri match, Mayu Iwatani cut a promo, backstage, sort of what New Japan does after a big match. They go backstage at sort of like the midi press conference, and she vowed to win a world championship by the end of 2022. She won the SWA championship, but it's not the same. For her storyline is to redeem herself and win a big championship. And people didn't know it was going to be the IWGP Women's Championship. So I could see her winning here, but it's more likely that Kairi's going to win and have this title be the part-time title, like you said, Josh.
And Jay, you mentioned JD's question, JD from Red Leaf Retrocast, saying, what do you guys think of a discussion of point that the current crop of NJPW/Stardom fans believe Mayu to be the bigger star than Kairi, both domestically and internationally? The point around Kairi was in WWE, but it isn't WWE fans watching Stardom nor going to strong shows. And I think, like you were mentioning, I do think that Kairi is the bigger name internationally just due to her WWE and NXT experience, and it's the exposure from that audience. And so to have her, somebody who's already familiar with American wrestling fans, I think that's a great pick to send over to America and put on those New Japan Strong shows, those New Japan of America pay-per-views. And so to me, I do think that Kairi is the bigger international star, even though Mayu does have ton of experience here in the U.S. and she was on a ton of those like New Japan Ring of Honor shows that they used to do, and was all on ROH tapings, and we've seen her recently at the 44th Street pay-per-view New Japan just did a couple weeks ago here. So I think she definitely has a presence internationally as well, but I definitely think Kairi is higher.
Well, another thing too to take into consideration is, granted, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know the business metrics of, say, Joshi wrestling, so that might change my answer if what I'm saying is incorrect, but just historically speaking, from what I've seen from Puroresu, even if like the audience in Japan isn't actively, and there are people who do actively watch WWE, but even if they're not, there is, because of the culture of like the magazines and everything, there is a pretty strong knowledge about who's in WWE, especially if it is a domestic star. And that always seems to raise their profile. And we know this because whenever stars that were in major companies from the past, like WCW or WWE, make the jump and come over to Japan, they always get huge reactions, way more than your typical like foreigner who was from the indies or, just someone that's getting kind of introduced. And so, I mean, I just have to imagine that even if like Mayu's been the figurehead and sort of like the ace of the company and all these different variations, Kairi being over in America and working WWE, working, Charlotte and Sasha and Becky, that doesn't go unnoticed by the fan base either.
Yeah. I mean, Mayu's got a lot of things going on there. I don't know if Netflix is distributing it. It might be, because I think Ian Riccaboni said like she's got a Netflix movie, or Kevin Kelly, but I think he might conflate it with the Dump Matsumoto movie that's going to come out on Netflix. But there is a movie being made about Mayu Iwatani and her life, and it's going to be distributed in Japan. I know Mayu, she wrote an autobiography that did okay, so she is a big star, but like you guys said, like I really do think that the cachet for Kairi and for coming from WWE is gonna pay off. And listen, like I don't like to bring this in because I don't think it's gonna happen, but I saw a lot of chatter from the WWE centric fans when they saw the screenshot of Sasha Banks, tweeting out a Photoshop picture of her and Kairi for the IWGP Women's Championship. And that Sasha Banks has one of the most has a fan base that is so rabid. It rivals Naito. Like it is so rabid. They follow everything she does. They freaked out when she started following New Japan on Instagram, and they've had their own theories that she might come out for this show to challenge whoever wins the IWGP Women's Champion.
Well, I assume this title's going to be on the Tokyo Dome, more than likely, and we don't have anyone confirmed as being lined up as a challenger, obviously. So I'm not saying it's going to be her, but like you got to imagine that there's a good likelihood that they do something at the post, match that sets up a title challenge for down the line, unless they're going to save that for a Stardom show. But it is a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to be her, but if I was them, I might do something like that with whoever I could that I was lining up to be the next challenger.
Yeah, and even if it's weird because I just don't think she's just because with Survivor Series coming up, I think she's going to jump back to WWE, and even if she does this, I think it sets off a firestorm of things, especially after hearing Tony Khan's interview with Ariel Helwani when he reacted just off the rumor news that New Japan was working with WWE. He basically immediately called up Gato and Rocky about it. He said it on Ariel's podcast, and to me, if we have the situation where Sasha Banks shows up somehow to this show to challenge Kairi or Mayu, I mean, it would be a big match, and Sasha has faced Kairi before in WWE, whereas Mayu, that's basically a dream match. A lot of women's wrestling fans would watch, but I think it would just set off more problems because of she's going to show up at Survivor Series 2, and you already have the Carl Anderson situation going on with the Never Openweight Championship, and then him not coming in place of the Saudi show. I think
maybe she doesn't show up at a Survivor Series. Maybe because remember, Tony Khan said, "I'm not Jim Crockett. I got a lot more money than he did, and I'm not taking any more of this fucking shit."
You never know. You never know. I just think it would cause a little bit more problems than headaches than actual. But you never know. But
I mean, we've seen no stories of her being granted her release. I mean, with the Triple H regime, we are seeing a little bit more flexibility on being able to do stuff outside of WWE. Sending Shinsuke Nakamura, they're gonna let Carl Anderson finish up for New Japan. So it does seem like Triple H is open to doing that kind of stuff, and
don't do that, Jeremy. You don't bring reality into this, okay? Let us speculate wildly, okay?
But I'm just saying maybe he could work out a deal, to bring Sasha back. Like, all right, like part of her, extension or whatever negotiations. Like, all right, yeah, you can come back and we'll let you do your little Joshi. You can go do your Stardom Wrestling, pal, and send her over there.
They'd be so stupid if they did that. I would never in a million years ever. I mean, unless it's like you're saying, unless it's to appease her, I would never do it.
Yeah, but besides that, I would have a hard time. I would be honestly like, I'd be so shocked if you hear Snoop Dogg ringing through the Ariake Arena, and Sasha Banks comes rolling in to challenge the winner of Mayu and Kairi. I mean, it'd be crazy. Everybody would be buzzing. They'd be talking about it. Like you mentioned, Josh, you need a big women's match for the Dome. So like Mayu or Kairi versus Sasha for the IWGP Women's title would be huge. But I think the chances for it are very slim.
Well, I definitely think that we are, we're pressed for time, and I want to make sure we get to everything here. So maybe we could jump into. We got some questions here. Maybe we can give them short answers so we can try to touch everything here.
Yeah. We had a question from a Dark Soldier. It says, given Kairi is a pirate, should she make her entrance on a massive boat to the ring?
That'd be awesome. I don't know if Bushiroad has a budget, but just seeing how. Did you see any of the clips of the Bushiroad 15 anniversary live show? Just how much looks like they spent a lot of money on that.
I did. I saw like some backstage promos, but I didn't see anything from the actual show.
Yeah, it was at the former Cebu Dome, so or MetLife Dome. I think they changed the name of it now. It's another sponsor, but they got money to burn. But so maybe this shows up pirate ship. I don't know.
Do it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, it'd be
Didn't
fun.
get to do it at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
True.
James Boyd asks, will Historic Crossover even be the best Stardom show from the weekend?
All right, haters gonna hate. Okay.
It might be. Gold Rush is it's a good show up and down. For a B show, it's pretty good compared to this show. I still think Historic Crossover is going to be the better show, but for a B show, it's pretty good. I would encourage people to watch it.
Nice. Some questions here from Rambo and Slam Pig. He says, what is most likely to have a positive impact on the visibility and reach of Stardom in the West? The Historic Crossover pay-per-view, participating in NJPW shows and tours in the West, expanding English commentary and accessibility of the streaming service, or something else?
That's a good question. Well, it reminds me of a couple of weeks ago. The podcast Stardom Cast, which is hosted by Rod Goodwin and Matt Turner, they had Kevin Kelly on, and they were asking questions, and I straight up tweeted them. I was like, what's the expectations for this show? What's the number of buys do they expect for people for TVSI and the higher ups to get? And I was surprised. He immediately tweeted back at me. He's like, there's no number. It's just that we want buzz throughout social media and word of mouth just to permeate. And I've heard him talk about this with Stardom. He wants him and Chris and maybe another wrestler on the Stardom roster that speaks English to do the show, because they're going to call the show. They're going to call this show on the English side, and he's thought about talking about bringing in Filthy Tom, or our favorite guest of yours, Karen Peterson, maybe coming in and bringing her in to do some commentary work there. He basically told me that straight up, there's no set number of buys or buy rate of what they need to do to achieve this. It's just that they need to spread the word of mouth, and I think this is an important show for them, and that's what's coming out of somebody that's working there. So to me, that's big for them. But also, to me, what they need to do is get maybe a subtitle version of the We Are Stardom show. I think if they were able to do that, maybe do a time, not a time buy, but maybe approach one of these, like maybe like how Roku had the deal with New Japan for the hour-long show, for people to watch for free. Maybe approach them, or approach a Pluto TV, set up a channel like the how the wrestling channel is on Pluto TV, or Defy. Oh, that's gone now.
Yeah, I used to watch it pretty regularly, like just like late at night. I don't think it exists anymore.
It might be a seasonal thing, because I'm a fan of Pluto TV, and they used to have like the Bond channel.
Yeah,
and take that off seasonally. So maybe it might be that, but maybe try to hook up with one of them. How Impact has a channel and AAA has a channel.
Yeah.
Setting up something like 24 hours just to show that TV show. I know Stardom has a deal with Nippon TV, which is kind of hard for them to merge with New Japan because they have different TV deals. The TV deal might be done, but we don't know, because the last time they ran something on Nippon TV was a couple weeks ago, when I told you about the Fujian match. So that might be an obstacle, but I think if they subtitle the We Are Stardom shows, and those are clip shows, but they're half an hour to easy digest. I think if you could do that, I know they're free on YouTube, but I think if you could penetrate something larger like a Pluto TV for people to just, who are flicking or channel surfing and stumble across that, I think it could be something worth it because, the fan base now internationally, there's a generation of people that are used to foreign language media, and they're not afraid to watch anything subtitled. So I think that could be another step forward. But historic crossover has to do well. Has to do well.
Yeah, and I do think the Rambo's question, I do think a big key is going to be going forward English commentary and accessibility to the streaming service. Even thinking from a question that we got on Twitter from the Greg Stark says, do you think there will be a point when Stardom's content is included with New Japan World? I've been trying to follow what they have up for free on YouTube. I like the wrestling, but I've had a hard time figuring out what the hell is going on. So I think a lot of fans, they're hearing the buzz about Stardom, all these match of the year contenders. You saw the PWI 150, all the Stardom representation there. So I think that word of mouth, like you mentioned, that Kevin Kelly wanted for Stardom, I think that's happening. People are aware, people are paying attention, people are trying to learn and figure out what's going on. And so I'll see, people might not want to pay for two services, New Japan World and Stardom World. Maybe Bushiroad does something similar to what's going on over there with Cyber Agent, where you have Noah and Tokujoshi Pro and DT all on one thing. So I think trying to make Stardom easy for people to follow, people like this crossover show, getting New Japan fans either subscribe or, like you're mentioning, Jay, like do something to increase like the visibility of that YouTube show. Get some English commentary for that to really help fans, Western fans, figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Because I think merging the two streaming services, everybody, like, people have asked me that a lot, like in the past couple of years, ever since the Bushiroad merger, and I was saying it's the TV situation has to get worked out first. And if they're free and clear from Nippon TV, they can do it. I have this weird feeling. I don't have any concrete evidence. So don't quote me on, but I don't think they're totally finished with Nippon TV. They just Unext is one of their sponsors now, and even though that's a streaming service, it's one of their big sponsors now. You can see in the turnbuckles if you watched Stardom recently, they have the Unext logo. So for them, they just have to get the television situation figured out, because television really controls a lot with combat sports over there. It really dictates what goes on, and it's not as simple as just merging the two platforms. It would be easy to do, but they just got to get everything situated.
Yeah. So last question here, and this is actually related to the Hall of Fame. It says, is there anyone missing from the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame ballot for Japan that you think is an egregious omission?
I mentioned before Kenta, but the one before that, I think, is the Beauty Pair. I think I know what Dave was going for with putting Manami Toyota and Toshiaki Yamada on the ballot as the only women's tag team on the ballot. But I think the Beauty Pair should be on, because Maki Ueda has never been on the ballot. And he's never been on the ballot. Jackie Sato's in the Hall of Fame already, but I think the Beauty Pair is the blueprint to everything. All these female tag teams in Japan. Without the Beauty Pair, there's no Crush Gals, there's no Jump Bomb Angels, there's the Red Typhoons, there's no Meltier. Meltier is trying to be the new version of the Beauty Pair. With the singing and all that stuff, and they were the blueprint. And even. I'll cut it short. I could ramble on, and thank you guys for having me on, just rambling throughout the couple of hours. But I'll just cut it short here. Throughout their run as a tag team, they drew two big houses at Budokan Hall, one 13,000 seat house and one 10,000 house, with matches against each other, and that was in the middle of their tag run. And to me, and then not just to mention that they had actual songs on the radio for them, and they were in a movie. I think to me, they have the drawing component, the fame component, and the influence that basically every Joshi promotion has tried to chase that bag in terms of having a star tag team that penetrates music and TV, like the beauty pair did. And I think the beauty pair should be on the ballot. But I knew what Dave was doing because I think, unfortunately, case that a lot of the voter fan base wouldn't be receptive to voting for the beauty pair. I mean, there's a lot of tag teams on that list are not getting votes that are legendary tag teams, just not getting them. So
yeah.
That being said, that's the one that's mission. That the beauty pair and Kenta, and I think Kenta should be on the ballot too.
Gotcha. Well, that is our historic crossover pay-per-view. Right now, we're going to try and kind of breathe through these last few topics that we have here. We have to do our World Tag League, Super Junior Tag League predictions. Also, we'll have more time next week and the next coming weeks to spend, focusing on the World Tag League and the Super Junior Tag League. So last week, we announced the teams. This tournament will start the day after historic crossover and run into December. So I think
they're giving us like 2 weeks off right now, and then they're just like, "Fuck you guys, eat this World Tag League, take the Super Junior Tag League." It's like 10 shows in like 15 days. It's like something crazy.
Yeah, the schedule. I was looking at it earlier to kind of plan out like the rest of our year for KISS, and it was just like, man, like show. I'm like, man,
yeah, we got awards and stuff to do. I don't know, like. You guys better be happy if we just, skim through these and give you some.
So let's just go around and just kind of give our kind of gut prediction of who we think is going to win each of these leagues. So World Tag League, the heavyweight team. So we have the Bebop tag team, Tanahashi and Yano, Bishamon, Goto and Yoshihashi, LA Dojo, Coughlin and Gabriel Kidd, LIJ is Naito and Sonata, United Empire is Great Okan and Aaron Henare, Aussie Open, TMDK, Suzuki and Archer, Fale and Owens, and then Evil and Yujiro. Jay, who you got?
I got Aussie Open. I think they're going to rematch against FTR at the Dome.
That's the same thing I've got. I don't know who they're going to end up in the finals against. I know on one of the final nights they're against LIJ, but that doesn't mean that that's who they're going to face in the finals. It could be like a rematch scenario, or maybe I don't know. Let me just say them and Bishamon, maybe.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I think it'll be them and Bishamon in the finals, and they beat Bishamon. They get the title match.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Yeah, I think it's Aussie Open, get that big rematch on the Tokyo Dome, get a great tag team title match. Then the Super Junior Tag League, which I think is a little bit more unpredictable. So we have Wild Hips, Taguchi and Clark Connors, Kushida and Kevin Knight, Flying Tiger, Leo Rush and Yo, Alex Zane and Lindemann, Bushi and Teton, TJP and Francisco Akira, Kanemaru and Doki, Ace Austin and Chris Bay, and Sho and Dick Togo. Jay, who you got?
That's a tough one. The Flying Tiger tag team intrigues me. I really like them. Always been a fan of Robbie Eagles. Always like Tiger Mask. So, but the one I think might do it is Chaos with Yo and Leo Rush. I mean, bringing Leo Rush in, I don't think he's going to be cheap. So I think you bring him to win the tag league, so you can face was it Catch 22? They're the champs, junior tag champs. So I guess you have Leo and Yo at the Dome. Even though I kind of want to see Flying Tiger face Catch 22.
I'm going to give you a prediction, although it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense because typically they like to have domestic stars involved in this stuff. And if we're getting FTR Aussie Open, that's already a Gaijin tag team match. But I think both tag team matches at the Dome are going to be heavily Gaijin that way. I think we're going to end up with some sort of scenario. I don't know. I haven't worked out the mechanics of it, but I think we're going to end up with a scenario where Catch 22 ends up defending the title in a three-way against the Bullet Club team of Ace Austin and Chris Bay, as well as Yo and Leo Rush.
Yeah. Okay. Josh, man, we're on the same wavelength because I think that's going to happen too. Because I think
is that the exact thing that you're predicting? We haven't even talked about it.
Yeah, because on the last tournament night, Catch 22 faces Bullet Club. So I think Austin and Bay will beat them, and then in the finals they'll face Yo and Leo Rush, and then Yo and lose. But then they can say, "Hey, we beat the champs, still
we want a title shot. Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then
yeah.
you get your opener 3-way.
Yeah, plus, like, Chris Bay's never been to Japan. The Bull Club seems like they're in the dust. They need to kind of like reinvigorate them a little bit. I feel like they need to have a presence on the Tokyo Dome show. It makes a lot of sense. And I feel like that's probably one of the better 3-way, junior tags you could possibly do for that show.
Yeah, and I could also see them doing a 4-way too somehow, get Bushi and Teton in the mix again. It is a single block, so the champs possibly could eat 2 losses and still be fine. So you could have Bushi and Teton also get a win over those guys and make it a 4-way.
Could do that. Or like he mentioned, Flying Tiger is also a viable contender as well.
Yeah. And then we had another episode of New Japan Strong this past Saturday, second night of the Showdown Tour. Show opened up, we had Kenny King defeating Che Cabrera. Then we had Dane Lima and J.R. Kratos from Team Filthy defeating Young Fuego, Adrian Quest, and Jordan Cruz. And then the main event was Minoru Suzuki defeating the Savage Weight Fred Yehai in 16 minutes and 29 seconds. Overall, what were you guys' thoughts on this week's Strong?
Each match got better than the one before. I thought Che Cabrera was kind of outperforming Kenny King, which is kind of surprising. I liked the tag team match quite a bit. I felt like the show peaked with Suzuki and Freddie Yehai, which is right up my alley, although it wasn't as good as it possibly could have been. I prefer this type of Suzuki match where there's a bit more wrestling as opposed to just the traditional indie, big, the slap fest match that he does. I am concerned, though, that Strong is just simply turning into NXT UK with the way that these tours are sort of just chopped up and basically inconsequential to the rest of New Japan. One last thought. That promo with the Bull Club guys, like with Juice and Chris Bay and who else was in
ELP.
That was terrible. I don't know what the fuck that was.
I almost didn't recognize Chris Bay during that promo because like he had the bandana on. Just everybody looked like real dirtbaggery, just doing their part. I thought it was okay promo, but this show, I like this show. I like last week's show, New Japan Strong better, but I thought this show was pretty good. And Minoru Suzuki Fred at Yehai was a really good match. I like the opening start of it with them just working headlocks and stuff, and Fred grabbing his ear with the cauliflower ear, and then Minoru Suzuki just taking advantage of it, and he went from there. So, thought it was a pretty good show.
Yeah, really good show. Yeah, I really enjoyed the main event. Like Josh mentioned, I think this was a step above the kind of Suzuki US indie stuff that we've been seeing. I thought Fred Yehai did a good job of kind of working in there with Suzuki and really making the match really entertaining. And I like, the whole thing where, Suzuki is going for the chop exchange and Yehai tricks him in and gets a single leg, takes him down. So I thought Yehai looked really good. I think Yehai is a very underrated guy. I like to see them do more of him in New Japan. The tag match was good. That's a long-going rivalry there with Dane Lima and Adrian Quest, which kind of was a rivalry that kind of started from the beginning of Strong, taping in the studios. And we got the debut of Kenny King here. Looks like he'll be a regular going forward for New Japan Strong. So definitely a fun episode to check out. Next Saturday, we'll have Pretty Peter Avalon making his return in New Japan Strong, taking on Kita, Blake Christian, and Mascot Arata. They'll be taking on Chris Bay and El Phantasmo. And then the main event will be Homicide taking on Filthy Tom Lawler. There was a promo at the very beginning of this week's show with Tom talking about this match at Homicide. This match has been brewing for a while now, so they're going to have a big matchup here for next week's Strong. Then we got the announced lineup for the Detonation tapings that are going to happen, again, the Vermont Hollywood on November 20th. So we're going to have a strong title match with Fred Rosser defending against J.R. Kratos, the Motor City Machine Guns defending the tag titles against the Stray Dog Armies, Barrett Brown and Mysterioso, Tamatonga, Hikaleo, Alan Angels, and David Finley will take on Jay White, ELP, and the West Coast Wrecking Crew. There's going to be a Lucha Libre Rules match as Rocky Romero and Adrian Quest will take on Atlantis Jr. and Vitas. Bad Dude Tito will take on Kenta. Mascar Dorada and Lince Dorado will take on Cody Chung and Guillermo Rojas. Homicide will take on Dane Limelight. Blake Christian against Juice Robinson. The DKC against the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels. JAY Jacob Austin Young against Bateman. And then Gregory Sharp versus Kenny King. So then diving into the news real quick, it was mentioned on a previous episode of Wrestling Observer Radio that FTR is set for the Tokyo Dome. Dave Meltzer said he confirmed that FTR will be defending the IWGP Tag Team titles at Wrestle Kingdom 17. We mentioned earlier with Jeff Cobb missing the Tamashi shows this past weekend. He was scheduled for the New Zealand and Australia shows, but was off due to personal reasons. This past week, we had Yota Tsuji making his CMLL debut, transferring from RevPro over to CMLL. So he's finally living his dream, getting to do some lucha things. Some other news: December 1st, we have the Dragon Expo show for Tradition, as the main event's going to be the 50th anniversary debut of Fujinami as he takes on Hiroshi Tanahashi. We'll also have Nagi teaming up with Naito and Shingo Takagi to face off against Funaki, Zack, and Jake. And then Hiromu will be taking on Leona. And then for Defy, November 26th, our good friend Rocky Romero will take on Powerhouse Hobbs from AEW. The Junior Champs, Catch 22, they have an online meet and greet coming up on November 23rd. And then for those Detonation tapings, they're giving away 40 free cooler bags for that New Japan Strong taping. So if you get there early, you'll get one of those bags. And that's going to wrap up the news. Josh, you want to kick these other questions for next week and just jump to recommended match of the week?
Yeah. I mean, unless there were some MMA boxing questions that I know JML might want to jump on. I don't know.
Yeah, so let's do those. There's a couple from Hawaiian Punch BV until pretty recent. He said, thoughts on Alex Pereira's performance against Izzy this past weekend. How can Izzy be winning in all three of their fights and somehow still come out on the losing end? Alex Pereira just hits different, literally.
Well, Jeremy, maybe you would like to tell the people, who did I say was going to win that fight?
You said Alex was going to win.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the what's that word? Procrastinator? What's the word?
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Oh man, I wish I could say it because now I sound stupid. I am Nostradamus up in this bitch is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I knew he was going to win. And here's the reason why. And it's pretty simple. I just knew Izzy was going to stand with him. And Izzy's incredible, but Pereira weighs more than him. And he seems to be able to find the right timing to like catch him on the button. And he's done it 2 other times before. And there's no reason that Israel Adesanya should have lost that fight if he had potentially worked more MMA more of his MMA game, but he decided to stand with him for 5 rounds for the majority of the fight. And it cost him in the 5th round. And I just had a gut feeling the whole fight, even in the 5th round, I just had this feeling that Pereira was going to catch him, and he did. And next time they fight, he shouldn't do that.
You follow USA, Jay?
I used to follow it many years ago, but I've stopped watching it lately.
So you're more into boxing at this point, is that correct?
Yeah. I've eased back into boxing. For a while, I took a break from boxing MMA, but I'm slowly coming back to boxing now. I don't watch the Jake Paul, any of those like fights or anything like that. Just don't entertain those. But yeah, like any of like the real. Gosh, it's funny because we're talking about pro wrestling. We're on a pro wrestling show, but any of the real boxing, like I'll watch that. Even though like Jake Paul's a good promoter, it's not for me.
He might be a good worker too. It seems like.
Hey, did you see the angle with him and Tyson Fury's brother Tommy Fury?
No,
that happened over the weekend.
No.
Yeah. So I saw on. You could see it on social media, but Tommy Fury is Tyson Fury's brother. He was fighting on the undercard of that Mayweather Dage fight. Is it Dage? I guess he's I think he's a YouTuber, but they were fighting in Abu Dhabi. It's the same show that Bobby Fish got his first boxing match. The one that Sammy Guevara was on commentary for. But after the fight, Tommy Fury called out Jake Paul, and they had a war of words, and they almost came to blows. So expect that to be on upcoming WWE show coming near you. since Tyson Fury is involved with the WWE. If you ever seen Tommy Fury, he looks like somebody on NXT. Like he looks like an NXT wrestler for sure.
I know Tommy Fury from Love Island. It's the best.
So yeah, good wrestling type promoter, but I don't watch his fights. But yeah, with MMA, I've just kind of fallen out of it. I used to be a big fan of the UFC. Really when the Matt Hughes, Chuck Liddell era, I was a big fan.
That Spike TV.
Yep,
era.
Spike TV. You know how Dave goes on like talking about how the Ultimate Fighter drew in so many wrestling fans. I was one of those wrestling fans.
Me too. After Impact every Thursday.
Yeah. So I used to love watching the UFC, followed it, and I've kind of fell out of it lately. It was just too many shows burned me out.
One last question. Harry says, what is your favorite Anthony Johnson KO? How do you feel about everyone singing his praises as a person when he dies, but also ignores that he was a terrible person around women when the cameras weren't on him?
This might make me a bad fan or journalist, but I don't know about the allegations really, to be honest with you. So that's kind of a part of his life that I'm not that familiar with, to be honest with you. As far as my favorite knockouts, I mean, I don't know, man. What I will say is Rumble is one of the most dynamic strikers in the history of combat sports, period. Whether it was from 147 all the way up to 265, he literally had dynamite in both hands. I've seen very few guys that I can ever recall in any combat sport that just had the innate ability to just stop someone's lights and just knock them out at a moment's notice, through just sheer force of will. He's just one of the scariest fighters that I ever saw. And I really, really enjoyed watching his career. I was devastated to hear of his, demise and his death. 38 years is just too young. It sounds like the news coming out now, even though it's not fully confirmed. I think the belief is that it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that he was diagnosed with, and that's what causes passing, which is too bad. But yeah, I mean, almost every single fight that he won was a devastating knockout. So it'd be impossible for me to just, I'd be listing, a million knockouts. This guy was a killer. It was crazy. And I'm sad that he passed. I mean, even just a month ago, he won an incredible knockout. Or actually, that was it was in May, but still. Yeah, it just crazy. It's very shocking.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard about it, I was shocked as well. I did hear things about him his past in terms of domestic violence, and it needs to be reported when things come up like that. But it is, but it's sad all around, and with Rumble, I watched him a lot. I told you I was a fan, during that era, and I watched him. I was just amazed sometimes how he would cut so much weight to get to 170. Like he was not supposed to be a welterweight.
Oh, dang.
What? He was supposed.
I said 147 because I was thinking of welterweight.
Yeah, boxing. Well, yeah.
He was 170 to 265.
I think we all understood. Yeah. But he was just a monster. The one the one knockout I remember was the head kick. I think he cracked somebody's nose with. It was just brutal, but I forgot who it was, but might have been Burns. I forgot the fighter's first name, Burns, yeah, I did hear about his domestic violence past, and I mean it's unfortunate because a lot of fighters they have that with them. It comes with the sport. Whether it's boxing or mixed martial arts, there's a lot of guys who have violent personal lives, and you gotta take both, and it's up to you. It's your personal choice. Sometimes for me, I made a choice with the NFL. With all the stuff going on with them, I just kind of threw my hands up and stopped watching them then. And I think I could have went the same route with MMA in terms of the people involved, but that was more of me being burnt out. But with the NFL, certain people have certain lines, and for me with the NFL, with the people getting in trouble and things like that, and the corruption going on with the front offices, I threw my hands up there. So I respect anyone who made that line and said, like, we have to present this even in this passing. So.
Yeah, similar to Josh, I wasn't familiar with his any claims of domestic violence in his past, but still, I think dying at 38 years old still a tragedy and very sad to hear. Yeah, that's some sad stuff. But let's close off here with recommended match of the week. So last week for the excursion match, I recommended Muto Marufuji and Inamura versus Makabe Honma and Tanahashi from the Pro Wrestling Love Forever 3 show. Josh, what do you think about this?
There was something that was really, really awesome about this match, and his name is Inamura. Other than that, well, actually, no, Marufuji was great. This match was fine. It was probably better than I'd heard some pretty negative things about the match going into it, and then I heard some people say that it was very fun, so I just kind of tried to clear my mind and just watch it, kind of cold, and I thought it was good. I thought that they did a good job, with the production and building it up as a major, semi-main event for the show, and all the history between Tanahashi and Muto and all that. But at the end of the day, it wasn't anything that was it wasn't a train wreck by any means, but it also wasn't really a great match. It was a good kind of showcase, and I mean, it's kind of to be expected. You got Togi Makabe and Honma in there. Tanahashi is not always, he's up and down these days, and then Muto can only do so much, and then it sort of leaves you with Marufuji, Tanahashi, and Inamura like having to carry most of the match to a certain degree. They had a good formula at the end. The closing sequences were pretty hot. It got good down the stretch, but the early opener and middle of the match were kind of just, they were just there, Would I say this was bad? Definitely not. But it's, unless you're like a Muto completist or like a new or like a Noah fan, there's not really too much reason to go out of your way to watch this one. Honestly, I'd give it, I don't know, 3.5 probably, to be kind.
Nice. Then for the recommended match of the week, you chose Hashimoto and Iizuka versus Ogawa and Murakami from the January 4th, 2000 Tokyo Dome show. And man, this match was wild and crazy and chaotic. Cool. From the opening bell towards the end. I mean, I felt bad for poor Iizuka at the beginning. Murakami was jacking him up, was on him, like
he got legit knocked out.
Yeah, so he was knocked out, and then like the whole like New Japan like a roster came out, Inoki came out, and like they had to like stop the match and restart it. And then, and the crowd was very hot for Hashimoto and Ogawa getting in there. And the crowd just really wanted to see those guys, Hashimoto and Iizuka, get the win there and do the strikings, the throws, Ogawa busting out those STOs, just a very hard-hitting MMA influence. All these guys are wearing gloves and kick pads and striking.
It's weird. It's almost like it was a Nokiism or something. It's almost like sometimes the Nokiism actually had some good matches every now and again. It's weird. People say that didn't happen. It's so crazy.
But yeah, it was a crazy match. Towards the end, it was down between Iska and Murakami, and Iska was able to get the rear naked choke on and get the win as Hashimoto had Ogawa out in a key lock and was like trying to break his arm. And so Hashimoto and Iska won. Crowd was happy. It was a pretty short match, but also they kind of had a start and stop, and then the kind of quick ending there with the choke. Yeah. But overall, it was a crazy, wild, chaotic match. I would say like 4.25 range, and I think people should definitely. You have to go out of your way to find it. It's very hard to find this match online
because of Ogawa and the TV rights issues. Like, none of his matches are New Japan World, so this is available, but I had to pretty much download it from like a quasi porn site. So just forewarning, if you're gonna look for it, like, it's gonna be on some sketchy website.
Watch those Google searches.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth it. This match, it used to be on Daily Motion. Like, everything's gone off there. I don't know what happened, but yeah, this used to be on Daily Motion like just a few months ago, but it's not anymore. So, but yeah, I love this match. It's wild.
All right, what you got for the excursion match of the week for this week?
Jeremy, I kind of feel like you made me watch this match knowing that the next week I would recommend to you the Kojima match, and like, you set it up that way so that you'd wind up with the better match with the wrestler that you like.
Maybe not.
Well, I guess that's what we're going to do, because I heard that the GHC tag team title match that preceded this match that I reviewed was spectacular. So that's going to be my recommendation.
Nice. And then for the recommended match of the week, we're going to go back to Collision in Korea. Akira Hokuto versus the Bull Nakano. To get us
the one women's match that you can actually find on New Japan World.
Yes. Gets us in the mood for a historic crossover. Well, Jay, thanks so much again for joining us tonight and educating us, holding our hands in the Stardom realm of things. So go ahead and plug all your stuff online. Tell our listeners where they can find you and any other projects you got going on.
Okay, so most importantly, go to support the Hall of Fame Tracker. Twitter handle, as long as Twitter's still around, is WONHOF Tracker. That's the easiest way to do it. WONHOF Tracker. We have the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame Tracker. We do not work for the Observer, but we do track the Hall of Fame votes for the public ballots, just to project who is going to go into the Hall of Fame. So most importantly, follow that account. Follow that account as long as Twitter's around. If Twitter goes down, we will pivot. We'll do something else. We'll make this thing work. Don't worry about us. We'll be fine. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheJML_. That is @TheJML_. I think a lot of people were confused when I started using the account. They thought I was a Sawyer Strickland, Sami Callihan related to that team.
Yeah.
But no, it's just me. So, you can follow me there, but most importantly, follow the Hall of Fame Tracker. If you're interested in the Hall of Fame, follow that account, and we'll go from there, because right now we're still getting a lot of ballots. I got some notifications already while recording this. So once I get off this call, I'm going straight back to doing that and looking over the ballots. So that's it for me.
Nice. Well, that's going to wrap things up for us here this week on the show. Next week, we'll be back to review historic crossover with Rich Latta and James Boyd from One Nation Radio. And we will preview the first few nights of the World Tag League and the Super Junior Tag League. So if you enjoyed today's show, Please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. For now, on Twitter, @KIStrongStyle. Follow the network @Social Suplex, and follow me @Jeremy L. Donovan on Facebook, facebook.com/Social Suplex, on Instagram @Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Y'all just Keeping a Strong Style. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. Check out all those shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin. The AEW Match Guide podcast, hosted by Sir Sam, and the Great Match Generator, hosted by Danny Kukler. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Chris, you know I was just joking. You know we think that you're itchy bad.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
The last thing you want to hear while listening to your favorite podcast is another gimmicky ad. NJM feels the same way. It's why they provide award-winning service without the use of mascots or repetitive jingles. Instead, they focus on you and how you could save up to 25% on your auto insurance by switching to NJM. That's a whole lot of gas money. No jingles or mascots, just great insurance. NJM. Visit njm.com/podcast for a quote to see how much you could save on your auto insurance.
Get more for your money this week at Meijer. No matter what you need, save with deals like 10% off general merchandise apparel and shoes with M-Perks, 50% off select Ophelia Row women's tops and pants, and 20% off board games and puzzles. Plus, start decorating for the holidays with buy one, get one 50% off indoor holiday decor or stockings. And you'll always pay the same low Meijer prices no matter how you shop, in-store or online. Get more for your money at Meijer. Exclusions apply. See all the deals in the Meijer app.